Almost there. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now live.
Good evening, Silverton. It's nice to see you in person. Welcome to a special meeting of the Silverton Board of Trustees. Tonight is June 4th, 2021. Time is 7:03 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. Administrator Edwards, would you like to lead the Pledge of Allegiance?
Would.
I'm sorry?
Both.
We pledge allegiance, no one do roll call.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, please roll call, please.
Trustee Barilla.
Here.
Trustee Harper.
here.
Trustee Wagner.
Here.
Trustee Beardall.
Here.
Trustee George.
Here.
Mayor Tim Barney.
Here.
Mayor Furman.
Here. The first item on tonight's agenda is ordinance 2021-06, an ordinance of the town of Silverton amending sections 8330 and 8340 of the Silverton Town Code in order to designate all streets, alleys, and rights of way within the town of Silverton as off-highway vehicle routes. Tonight we'll begin with public comment, move on to trustee discussion, followed by consideration to approve the ordinance and to set an election date if necessary. Following that, we also on the agenda have consideration to approve the contract for town administrator. At this time, we'll begin our public comment. As always, public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. Please keep the comments civil and please refrain from heckling, booing, applauding, participating when it's not your turn. And we're going to use a one strike you're out policy. If someone is unable to maintain order, we're going to ask Sheriff Conrad, who's been kind enough to volunteer this evening, to escort you out of the meeting. At this time, we'll start with in-person public comment, followed by Zoom participant public comment. And I'll be keeping the time. I'll hold it up at 30 seconds.
Okay. My name is Charlie Monsalve. A little background about me. I moved here in 1980 as a freshman in high school and graduated in 1984. My father was a miner here in town and my mother worked at Zhivago's. I'm speaking tonight because I'm very frustrated about the OHV decision made by the town trustees 2 weeks ago. This decision directly affects my livelihood and my ability to survive. Visitors are now saying that if they can't come into town for food, they'll bring their own food and just stay in the backcountry. Where do you think all those tax dollars are going to go? Not here. Why do you think you have a $400,000 surplus this year's budget? It's from the sales tax revenue we received from OHVs last year. I guarantee you hikers on the Colorado Trail and the Continental Divide who aren't working are not spending a lot of money in Silverton. We had the Gold King water spill in 2015, which hurt business. An avalanche hurt business one season, a fire hurt business one season. No train and COVID hurt business one season. The one constant has been OHVs, who have literally paid the town employee salaries as well as kept this town operating during these past 4 years, plus 4 years. The town businesses make approximately 70 to 80% of their income during the winter or the summer. This town is not big enough to support our businesses during the off season. There is no way or incentive for businesses to stay open during the winter if they don't make their money during the summer. Town businesses operate at a loss during the winter. They keep employees on the payroll throughout the winter out of the kindness of their hearts, so that we can earn a living year round. If they can't make what they need to during the summer, this will mean no grocery store, no hardware, no restaurants, no coffee shop, and probably a limited number of hotels during the winter. You all talk about quality of life. You are destroying the quality of life, all the businesses and their employees by crippling these businesses with these decisions. These are your neighbors, your friends, and townsfolk you're hurting with a decision like you made 2 weeks ago. It appears you made this decision without taking into consideration the livelihood of those who work in the service industry, who do not get paid by the government or are able to work remotely or are retired. These are the same people who were on the front lines serving you during COVID, the same people who stayed open to serve you while the town shut down. I'm done.
No, you've got 20 seconds left and we'll go over a little because I interrupted.
I'm very thankful the train is back. But unfortunately, the train passengers basically only have time to eat and shop for a quick souvenir. They rarely make it as far as the hardware store or the grocery store. We rely upon the business from the summer campers and the OHV riders to supplement the business we do regularly with Silvertonians. I'm good.
Time. Thank you.
Commercial property owners bear the brunt of property taxes at a whopping 30%. We have a small window of opportunity during the summer to make the money we need to pay them. These taxes go to fund the school, whose staff just received a 5% raise. These taxes help pay for roads and bridges that we and our guests use. We collect the 10.4% sales tax that funds everything else, including the EMS. So why then are we fighting to decrease the taxes we bring in? Somehow this ski expansion that is not going to happen immediately is now going to miraculously offset this lack of revenue. Skiing, mountain biking, hiking are all tourism industries. Why are they more important than OHVs? In a sense, you are discriminating against those who are physically handicapped, being able to enjoy the mountain trails because their only way to get there is via a 4x4 vehicle. Everyone wants special event donations for their causes. This doesn't happen if businesses are losing income. We need to figure out how to manage our guests in all the backcountry and town, not eliminate them. It's a tourist town. Silverton has been a tourist town for as long as I can remember, and it should be. We have so much to offer visitors from other areas. Let's be welcoming and figure out a way to manage them. We need them. You cannot move forward with a grandiose ski area expansion plans without creating an infrastructure to support these plans. Housing, sewage, water, roads, it all needs to be addressed before we expand. We have no bedroom community for the employees like Vail, Telluride, and even Purgatory have. Anyone who can't live in Silverton has to come over 2 passes from Durango or 1 pass from Ouray, which during bad winters can be closed for weeks. Let's think realistically. The bottom line is the town trustees gave Silverton a huge black eye. This would have never become the eyesore that it has if you had done what you should have done and sent this to a vote of the town. The tourists would have never been angry if this rash last-minute decision had not been made. You gave absolutely no time to prepare or make alternative plans. The fact that you never listened to and in fact ignored pro-OHV comments regarding waiting until the end of the season to make such a vote appears to have been a predetermined and deliberate in its timing. This was painfully obvious when a motion was seconded that had not even been made. I want this to be a positive. We need to all be able to agree to disagree. The fact is we live in a democracy and we don't always get what we want, but that is the beauty of a democracy. Everyone has a chance to be heard and everyone has a say. This town has spoken clearly twice in town elections regarding the OHV subject. You all acted as a dictatorship. You don't fire a town EMS volunteer for its political views. Everyone has a political view. It's called freedom of speech.
I grew up here in high school. You guys probably don't remember because most of you are new to town. We had 3 shifts of mining in all different directions. We had ore trucks coming and going. That was our livelihood. That's what this town's history is. There was dust, there was noise, but it was our quality of life. This is how we survived. It is ridiculous that a little noise 4 months out of the year suddenly is ruining the quality of life of some of our townspeople when the old timers here especially lived through the mining era. I see most of the people who live in Silverton on a daily basis. I checked on many of you regularly during COVID, not caring what side of the political spectrum you were on. You guys are worried about the quality of life because of noise and dust 4 months out of the year. I'm worried about feeding and housing myself and just surviving. That is the concern of most businesses and employees in this town right now. All of you need to start thinking about your neighbors and fellow community members. We are a community. In the end, why is your quality of life any more important than mine? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, trustees of the board. My name's Jim Loki. My wife and I own the Red Mountain Motel cabins and RV park, Jeep rental here in Silverton, the beginning of town. Tonight, I'm here to discuss the OHV route in town with the petition that we have submitted to allow the off-highway vehicles on the streets and alleys and right-of-ways. And secondly, a no vote would allow status quo to remain as it is right now, like we've done for the last several years. I'd like to ask the board tonight to rescind the vote and the decision made on May 18th, 2021 to prohibit OHVs in the town and to allow OHV access during this summer tourist season, and have a ballot vote in the fall by registered voters of Silverton. Tourism plays a very important role to the business in the town. Employment, seasonal workers, also year-round workers, employment, education to our families that all want to live here. So this is a very strong obligation to our summer tourists that widely supports the town of Silverton and its tax base. It would be extremely difficult to reroute the OHVs with such short notice. Vacation and reservations have been planned for over a year in advance for most of our visitors. Looking on the RV side of things and some of the new equipment that's out there, one of the biggest selling items right now is called a toy hauler RV. And those all fit an OHV inside of them with their camper. This is what most people are coming to Silverton with. And when they arrive here, they need an access route through town. And it's just like when we originally designated an OHV route, when we began this with the vote of the people in the beginning, it was to and from services and also get you to the trailhead. And that was what our plan was, to keep the dollars in town instead of out at Eureka. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Rose Robb. I'm a resident of nearly 47 years in our wonderful town of Silverton. I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you, and I will begin by saying how extremely disappointed I am with 4 members of this board who took it upon themselves to change this town and take away the right, the voted right for OHVs to be on the path that was prescribed. I have followed the finances of this town for many years. I haven't spent a lot of time the last 2 years coming, but tonight I felt I really needed to come and speak to you. I think the town has shot itself in the foot. And I pulled some documents today from past packets that I get. And I will just, I think what has been said so far covers a lot of what I would also like to confirm. But in looking at the sales tax revenue, going back to 2012, and I couldn't go back any further because I didn't have the time. But in 2012, the sales tax collected was $686,000. Since 2014, well, 2014, it jumped a little bit to $730,000. And then we go to 2015 and 2016. 2015, 827,000. And then we have 2016, 2017. Both of those years were around $950,000. We go to 2018, and remember, that was the year of the fire. $890,000. We go the next year, $1.1 million. Now, last year, we didn't have the train, unfortunately, but still, the town brought in $1 million. I would say that's a pretty significant increase in sales tax revenue since 2012. Before 2012, it was a lot less. The town has had projects that have gone way over budget. They have projects in the future that they need to pay for. And I'm just wondering where you're going to get that money if you're going to decrease your sales tax revenue. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Larry Rubb. I've been a resident. My wife and I have been here 47 years. Raised 4 kids, put them through college. Anyway, we've been here quite a while and we've seen a lot of different dynamic changes in this town. And I just want to make 2 points right now for this board to consider. And that is tax revenue, economics, and law enforcement. Having an attenuated route through town has caused a lot of havoc, and our sheriff has to shag people 1 block off the main and different places. So opening this whole town up solves a lot of law enforcement problems. Person on a skateboard who blows a stop sign and maybe goes over speed, you could give a ticket to. I'm kidding in that manner. But any vehicle driving outside of the vehicle traffic code can be ticketed, no matter what they are, where they're at. And there's violators all over the place, not just OHVs. Opening the town simplifies law enforcement in a big, big way. The action of this board shutting OHVs down just a month before the season starts is totally ridiculous for tax revenue generation. You should have set this up for a voter ballot issue in the fall, instead of clamping down on the beginning of the summer season, coming out of all the problems we've had in the past. COVID, trains, washouts, et cetera, fires. So just think about those things when you make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be nice. The reservations, cancellations that are coming in is 5, 6 a day. This thing goes south tonight. We got warnings. There's going to be a lot more. And that's another thing that Jim brought up with these people traveling with their toy haulers, and their only mode of transportation is the 4-wheeler they bring. These are families that made these reservations a year ago, some longer than that. And they can't just go someplace else now because every place is full. If you check around the country, people are in the woods and they're not going to stop. But so that's another angle, is think about the families that are coming here to spend money and have a good time. And now if we do this to them, we're not going to come. And it's going to be very inconvenient for them. And it's going to cost us all a lot of money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kirsten Brown, and we are the future owners of 5 units at 5th and Reese Street. Did I say 4 units? 4 units at the end of Reese Street. And so we're a new voice to this process, and we recognize that. But we're building in town, and we would like to specifically, we chose that property to be off the OHV route. So that was kind of part of our understanding when we went into this property, that we would be off an OHV route, that they wouldn't be driving up and down that street, and that we wouldn't have concerns for our 2 children playing on that street, and that we wouldn't have to deal with the noise that might bring. And I know this, I recognize everybody's concerns for the money and bringing in. I just want to I do recognize that. But then I would like to just take a second and maybe compare this problem to the ice lakes issue that's happening. And there were too many hikers going up there. And it reached a critical point where you could no longer handle it. And so that area had to become closed. For now, it's closed. And I think there's a proposed permit system. I'm not 100% up on what they're talking about there. But it's what we're dealing with here is similar to that. It's just becoming too many ATVs in town. And so I propose that you reached a critical tipping point, you as this board, and you had to take an action to stop what was going on, similar to the Ice Lakes closure. And I guess that's what I would like to say tonight. So thank you for making the decision. And I know it was a hard one. And hopefully there are ways to compromise and make everybody whole, especially the businesses here in town.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for giving us this opportunity to speak. I'm Gilbert Archuleta. I'm the fire chief with the Silverton San Juan County Volunteer Fire Department. I've been here my whole life. I think what everybody needs to look at is I live on 1368 Snowden Street. It's not Gilbert Street, it's Town Street. When everybody's coming up here and saying it's affecting my street, you don't own the street, it's a town street. I seen through the Iron Horse bike race how many people blocked off parking areas in front of their homes. That's not their property, that's a town property. Where are we going to go with this? The streets belong to the community. Where are you folks going to make up approximately $800,000 in sales tax revenue to support emergency services? There's people here, the majority of them taxes go to the Ambulance Association. They've saved numerous lives with being paid staff and being able to get people the help they need. Are we going to put a price tag on somebody's life or because there's some noise? I think at the last meeting, there was all these no parking. I go down Main Street. There's approximately 14, 16 parking spots blocked off to outside realty. You know, you want to eat outside, you got your business inside. If you're talking about that, there's no parking in Silverton, then why are we taking parking spots away? You talk about noise in Silverton, but there's not one person here that has a decimal meter that could tell me what the noise is. The thing is, open it back up, get things going. The town can handle it. When everybody's sitting here saying it's an OHV problem, it's a traffic thing. It's not OHVs, it's a Rubicons, it's a 4x4s. We've been found, everybody's out there. When everybody looks back at what them roads were 20, 30 years ago, I know what they were. I drove them roads with a 10-wheeler dump truck hauling 20 tons of ore off the mine roads. And it was paid by the mines to maintain them roads. That's why they were maintained. It wasn't the town, the county doing it. What is it costing this community? The county's complaining about what's going on over there. The town, at the last meeting, it was asked, where's the map? What's the jurisdiction of the truck bypass? There's nobody can make the answer. There's paid staff here. Why doesn't nobody know what the answer is? What are you going to do about the bypass where there's approximately 500 feet of area that you're going to have to load from once, if you're coming down from Gladstone, to unload and reload 500 feet later? There's no thought process in what's happened. I told you folks a month ago, there's times to make a decision, and when you made a decision, this last time it was a bad decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Judy Graham, and I have lived here for 30 years, owning the Wingate House Bed and Breakfast. And I think you all know my position that I'm very concerned about the presence of OHVs and the noise, et cetera, in town. What I want to tell you tonight is that I am a business person, and I have been all my life. I deeply believe in a free market economy, and I actually like capitalism and democracy. Humankind has not come up with a better economic and political system. I know no one on this town board is anti-business. As for me, I am so pro-business that I actually have credits towards an MBA, Masters of Business Administration. I'm saying this because I want you to know that there are plenty of Silverton business people, including me, who think it's a very bad business idea to have OHVs in Silverton. Many Silverton business owners do not want OHVs in Silverton. It's as simple as that. A beautiful person in the last OHV meeting said, "There's no wrong time to do the right thing." Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Carla Safransky, and the last time I was in this building, indeed this room, was about 4 years ago. And I was part of this board's creation of what we thought at the time was a compromise position on allowing OHVs to find a path through town, this side of town going to that side of town, which is where they wanted to be. No matter what we did or how much the community has tried in the subsequent years, we've not been able to find a solution that seems to really work. So I want to emphasize that at no time did I ever found the Board of Trustees to be anti-OHV, nor do I find them to be that now, nor do I find most of us in the audience to be opposite to them. However, there are some real important problems that they bring up to those of us who lived here, and everybody throws out, when did I move here? I moved here in 1976, and I operated a business, and my husband and I retired here. The problem is that OHVs don't pay any road taxes. In other words, they don't pay their way. They are unlicensed, and the state will not support us unless we allow 10-year-olds to drive them. And I am completely and positively opposed to having 10-year-old unlicensed drivers on the streets of Silverton. That makes no sense whatsoever. There are many other towns having the same discussion we are having tonight. Many of them are completely split about whether you want them in town or not. In the county, fine, let everybody go out and enjoy this beautiful place we live in, but not in town where our kids play on the streets and where the traffic is so intense. An unlicensed vehicle in this community makes no sense. Our town should not be subjected to becoming some sort of amusement park. This is where I live. This is where I operated a business, and this is where I want to continue to live. We're about many user groups, not just one that we think, whether it be the train or OHVs or hikers or whomever. We have to take care of many user groups, not just a few. We may denigrate the use of the noise and the dust. The county now has an absolute incredible problem to solve with the dust, but that's on the county. In the town, I know for sure, I don't want the noise and I don't want the dust and I don't want unlicensed vehicles on our streets. We don't even let snowmobiles go anywhere in town that they think they want to go. So I strongly urge you that I know my time is up. Let me just finish the thought. While we are in favor of OHVs per se, many of us are simply not in favor of OHVs on our town streets. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, my name is Paul Joyce. I live at 1626 Cement Street. Been a resident here in Silverton since 2005. I own motorcycles and snowmobiles. I am not anti-OHV. I am anti-OHV in town. I've been speaking on this subject in town hall meetings like this one for 15 years. I've been on an OHV task force and I've heard all the arguments. At the end of the day, for me and many others, it's a quality of life issue. I believe this particular issue is a decision for locals because we're the ones who have to live with the downside of OHVs in town. We're the ones paying taxes. We're the ones who are putting up with the long, hard, cold winters and mud season. And when summer finally comes around, the OHVs ruin it for some of us. In a perfect world, we could live without the train and thousands of tourists. Then locals could drive the streets with OHVs. But then you invite half the country to come ride OHVs on your streets. It kind of ruins it. I get the argument that we could wait till fall and vote. I could almost go there, but I don't want to do it one more summer. I don't even want to do it one more day. We will vote in the fall and that will decide the matter. In the meantime, let's enjoy the sounds of summer. I am empathetic to the business owners, but if I have noticed one thing since moving to Silverton, no summer has been less busy than the last. If we lose a few OHV tourists because they cannot ride down Main Street, that will make room for a few more car driving tourists who want to buy your goods and services. For me, the four-wheelers overran the town and were noisy, but they pale in comparison to the side-by-sides and razors. Those are the real culprits. I heard them all hours of the day, well into the evening, and no signs and stripes are going to change that. Signs and stripes don't help the countless people woken up every morning by the noise of OHVs in town. It's absurd to me that someone would petition to ruin their neighbors' lives by waking them every morning all summer long with very loud OHVs. But then many of the people arguing for OHVs in town do not live in Silverton. I am raising my two sons here and I can say Silverton is not an easy place to live, but we're trying to stay and losing the summer to OHVs is making it hard to want to stay. Please vote to keep OHVs out of town. The rentals can trailer them like everywhere else. That will create more jobs because that will have a separate jumping off point. My wife was born and raised in Moab and their family left in 2000 when it was overrun by tourists who negatively impacted their lives. Those stories ring in my ears as we have these conversations year after year. Please vote to keep OHVs out of town. Thanks for listening and representing Silverton.
Thank you.
Good evening, y'all. I'm Cole Davenport, 1333 Green Street. We voted all you guys in to do a job. That job, you guys did a campaign for. I respect every one of you guys as a community. We all should. Fighting us even more is even worse. We need to have this go to the people regardless. I mean, we can't divide it more than having it to the point of these people getting what they don't want by 4 people or more, or whoever it is on the board. I respect every one of y'all. Civility is one thing. This is what we have to do. Give it to the people. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Wendy Colley, manager for the Villa Della Valley and Canyon View Motel. One thing that was very apparent was this was not thought through. You had 2 application permits for events that were 1 day or 2 days. It had more logistical thought process than something that affects the entire summer. I've been taking phone calls for 3 weeks, still don't know. Where are we going to stage these things? You own a hotel. I'm guessing maybe your guests don't OHV because you're not complaining about the phone calls. It's ridiculous for us to have to take these phone calls and have no answer. For when you make people go through so much logistical effort for a 1-day event. So you should think about it.
Thank you.
My name is Ted Johnson. I live on Mineral Street. And I absolutely not plan to say a thing tonight, but I made a couple notes, so I will. First of all, we've had 2 people talk about they want their kids to play in the street. Well, I think they should parent up and teach their kids not to play in the street. Secondly, I've heard a couple people say, well, let them be in the county roads. Well, don't the citizens of this town realize that all the sales tax paid within the city limits of Silverton goes to the town board? None of it goes to take care of those roads that go beyond that. The third point I like to make is that we have another problem here. And that is we don't have enough employees in this town right now. And the only thing that I think that your action has done was to solve this problem. Because if you do away with demand for goods and services, you don't need employees. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not a public speaker. I'm Nancy Swanson. I stay home and try to mind my own business. Have a few friends around. I think it was a total injustice what you've done to our town. Since Silverton was founded, we have never turned anyone away, except maybe the Chinese when they worked on the railroad. And now the Chinese are welcome here. We don't care who comes, as long as they bring their money. That's how everybody feels. The ski area, it's the same way with them. So why block the OHV people? Because they're one distinct group. There should be a solution to this. It shouldn't be get out of town, we don't want you. It's a problem that needs to be solved, not start one thing and pretty soon it's going to be something else. And it's going to be maybe motorcycles, which we hear constantly up and down Blair Street. Loud motorcycles driven by people we all know. They don't care about the law, even though they try to enforce it. So I think we should all sit back and take a look at how to solve the problem, not how to kick people out of our businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else that's in person tonight like to make a public comment?
Just real quick. It doesn't make any difference to me personally. My name is Steve Pendleton. I live on Mineral Street as well. And whether there are ATVs in town or not really doesn't make a difference to me. I know it does make a big difference to the wages that are being paid in our community for all the services rendered. Unfortunately, I don't know who's going to be laid off once the income is decreased probably by 20%. But anyhow, you folks can make that decision who's going to be laid off. But I will say, if in fact you do discontinue the ability for folks to come in town with OHVs, my suggestion is to have a very, very well operated shuttle service that is provided and paid for with tax dollars to take the OHVs and the people back and forth, all the different campgrounds, and I mean, have a continuous service. So if you continue with disregarding the vote of the people, which is evidently what you're intending on doing, then you're going to have to take on your responsibility to make sure that these folks can come into town and enjoy the restaurants and all that. Thank you.
Thank you. Last call.
My name is Douglas Bishop. Been here about 21 years. I have an ATV. I trailer out of town. I have no skin in this game. I'm not worried about my personal inconvenience because it's not a big deal for me to be able to drive my Jeep and my little trailer and haul my ATV out of town. That's not a big deal for me. Man, I am concerned about some of you folks because you're not looking at others, you're looking at yourselves. I get weary of people looking at themselves first, putting themselves first above others. And in particular, you know, those of you who don't like ATVs, well, let me point out that you have motorized vehicles. They got four wheels, most of them. They make dust, they make noise, but you sure as heck wouldn't like to get rid of those, I'm quite sure. Or we could just close up the whole town and put a staging center at the south end of town, and you all can walk to your trucks and your cars when you want to go to Durango or Montrose or wherever. Quit thinking about yourselves. Think about the people who are trying to make a living in this community. Think about the people who are trying to make a living in this community. And a lot of you have addressed the tax situation. I agree with that. I concur with most everything that's said, except for those of you who are against OHVs, because I'm sorry, you're looking at yourselves. My golly, how much noise does it really make? And for how many weeks of the summer? Are you serious? Look at yourselves in the mirrors. Think about somebody besides self. Are you not your brother's keeper? A lot of you are not. But for a few weeks out of the year, a few months out of the year, you can't deal with a little noise, a little dust that your own vehicles create. Quit being hypocrites. I wrote emails to this board to four people who voted against OHVs. I heard back from two of them, and I'm so happy that I heard from Tyler and Jordan. And you make good arguments. They're great arguments. But my bottom line is the way you folks decided to shut down the OHVs in this town and to neglect the needs of the business people here. That's my concern. You took upon yourselves, four of you, took upon yourselves to make the decision for the community. And some of these people concur with that. Majority of them that are here, as I can count, don't. Many of them are business people. You got to be thinking about the tax revenues that they have mentioned. You got to be thinking about the businesses and the success of those people to make a living. And you can't deal, some of you, with a little dust and noise for a few months out of the year? You got a mirror at home. Take a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, if you change your mind, we'll come back to you. At this time, we're going to go to public comment on Zoom. If you're participating virtually, please click the raise hand button and our deputy clerk, Nathan Baxter, will promote you to panelist and enable you to talk. You also will be limited to 3 minutes. And please introduce yourself before you begin.
We do have Charlie Smith has been promoted to panelist. Charlie, if you would unmute.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. I hope you can hear me. I'm sorry, my video is not working right now. I spoke previously at your last meeting about the health effects of the dust and some other points, and I just wanted to quickly make some other observations. I've had the opportunity to travel to several other tourist communities. I've been to towns that are on a lake, and I've had to trailer a boat and put it in the lake and then enjoy the lake and then go back to where I was residing. I've been shuttled by a raft company to a put-in and then shuttled back after I've gone and done that trip. It's been the same with horseback trips. It's I don't think the opportunity to OHV in the San Juan Mountains is being limited at all by the decision of this town board. It's just you've made a decision to protect the residents, the majority of the residents, from something that they find unappealing for both the noise and the dust and the congestion that the OHVs in town have caused. I've heard a lot about the tax revenues and how they've been so great, and it's been attributed to OHVs. I think if you did a little research, you would find that every mountain town in Colorado had record years for tax revenue in 2020, and almost all of them do not permit OHVs in town. Many of them had revenue increases that far exceeded those for Silverton. And I think, yes, maybe there'll be some impacts to tax revenues by limiting OHVs to not be allowed to come in town, but the negative publicity that Silverton has been getting, sometimes being portrayed as a Victorian Thunderdome, is deterring other people from coming to this town and spending their money. I guess I had some other, we have a vacation rental. It's on the OHV route. Many of our guests are unhappy about this change, and many are very happy because they don't have machines and they don't want to be impacted. I'll point out that none of the guests have canceled for this summer. And I guess that finally just the trustees need to ask themselves if the profit for a few businesses outweighs the negative impacts to all of the residents. And many of you were elected based on your positions on OHVs in town. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Paul Savage, you are promoted to the list if you'd like to speak.
Yeah, I'm Paul Savage. I'm from the Telluride area. We've been coming down there for
couple of decades doing the Alpine Loop, ATVs and UTVs. We usually do 2 or 3 trips a year, a half dozen or more of us. We often come into Silverton, have lunch, get gas, go to the hardware store, grocery store. We've been talking this year about staying in a hotel, but a lot of that is really due to our accessibility on an ATV or ATV or OHV. Our accessibility is probably a little bit different than most people. We're all disabled, veterans and civilians, paraplegics and amputees. My ATV is my dirt bike. There's no way for me to get it licensed. Silverton doesn't have an OPDMD policy, which every municipality has to have had by 2012. It's a requirement of the ADA. Right now, Silverton is non-compliant. The OPDMDs is basically what allows us to go on an ATV, a UTV, have a trolling motor, or have an e-bike on areas that are otherwise unmotorized. You know, we love your town. We want to continue to come down there and spend money. And I really hope you allow us to continue to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alvin Davenport, you have been promoted to panelist. If you'll unmute yourself, you can speak.
Hi there, my name's Calvin Davenport, full-time resident, live on Mineral Street. I've been to all the OHV meetings. I've heard all the arguments both sides. There's good arguments for each side, but I'm going to spare everybody my opinions tonight. And I just want to support the 4 trustees who voted in favor of keeping the OHVs off the street at the last town board meeting. And I'd like to see the town continue heading in that direction. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands raised. I'll just ask one more time, any other public comment this evening, whether in person or on Zoom? We have one public comment that was submitted in writing that Deputy Clerk Baxter is going to read.
I'll see how much I can get through this. This is from Angela McCarty, Sterling Silver Properties here in Silverton. To the Town of Silverton Board of Trustees, it has been mentioned that all the feedback from the recent vote on OHVs has been positive. I want to make sure you know that is not the view of everyone in town. At this point, this has nothing to do with or not having OHVs in town. This is about how the residents, business owners, and guests of this town have been treated. Let's start with the residents. Twice the people of this town have voted on this issue. Twice it passed. Those residents should not have had the opportunity, should have had the opportunity to decide if they wanted to change that. It has been said that we voted you into the office to represent us. That is true. To represent us on day-to-day matters, not the bigger issues. If this were important enough for it to be taken to the town for a vote, not once, but twice, why would it not be important enough this time? Whatever made it seem okay to take away the voice of the people? Was it just because they did not agree with your personal feelings? Now for the business owners. Voting and making this effective at the beginning of what was looking to be a very prosperous year for local business was, excuse my language, chicken blank. As a business owner, I can live without the OHV, but in order to do that, I need to change the way I advertise and promote my properties. That takes time. I have reservations that were made over a year ago in anticipation of the ability to ride OHVs in town. When you voted to basically change everything, you put me and every other business owner in this town at a disadvantage. It has also been said that the town will see about getting assistance for the businesses that may have hardships. I do not want assistance. I want not only to build business in this town, but make it grow and prosper. I will not sit back and let the government take care of me. Someone must work to pay for all those already riding that train. Last but not least, the guests of this town. People have been planning, budgeting, and anticipating their trip to Silverton, in most cases for over a year. They want to ride the trails, enjoy the great scenery and cool weather. They have booked rooms, houses, and RV spots. They were going to shop in our town, eat in our restaurants. With one vote, you have told them that they are not welcome. Not because you voted OHVs out, because you chose to show no regard for their plans. You have given them no time to make other arrangements. You have given no help with alternatives. You washed your hands of them. You told them that they do not matter and you do not care. Over 2 months ago, a group of volunteers was formed to help address some of the problems we saw last year with OHVs. The group was composed of residents, business owners, and guests, all working together to help find a way to make this work for everyone. A few weeks ago, that group was presented some ideas that we're working on and wanted to implement. At the time, I was a little confused on why the board seemed to be dragging their feet on following through with those recommendations. Now it seems to make perfect sense. Finishing the thought, making this work was never the intention of most of the board members. The decision had already been made, so all those volunteers wasted all that time and in some cases money. I hate to say it, I will not volunteer my time again.
Thank you.
We do have John P. being promoted to panelist. Ron, if you will unmute yourself, you have the floor. John, we will try and come back to you.
If there's no further public comment at this time, we will move on to the next agenda item.
I think I need to take my sheriff's hat off and comment. Citizen Bruce Conrad. I think there is a bit of an elephant in the room in that we're hearing a great deal from the loud minority. And there is a quiet majority out there as well. When we have things like people calling the visitor center and making threats, people who are vandalizing town council people's vehicles, people who are calling town hall and making biased, motivated, racist, horrible comments, then those people are afraid to speak up. I think that's important. I think, as Judy Graham said, there are a number of businesses who are opposed to this now. And why would they speak up and take on the wrath of the cesspool of Facebook and be targeted by this loud minority? I commend you all for representing your community. I think it's very important. I think if this does go to a town vote now, it will get shot down this third time around. I think that it's been devolving over all these years. I appreciate the time and energy by all these people who are pro OHV, but where were they over the last many years? This has been devolving. This has been happening a long, long time. It's past the point of no return now. It's time to make a good change for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like we have a few more public comments, so we'll continue this agenda item.
John P., we are promoting you again. Let's see if it works this time. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, am I being recorded now?
We can hear you.
Yes, my name is John Poole. I live at 1625 Cement Street. I have been coming here for about 50 years. I built a house in 2000 and I retired here in 2012. I am all for the ATVers visiting town, but frankly, I'd like to see them, but not their ATVs in town. And I think if they looked in the mirror, they would realize that there are some problems when they bring their ATVs into town. It displaces places that other people can use in town. People coming in cars. It's my opinion, and of course we won't know until the end of the year, that we will have a great deal more tax revenues this year than last year. I don't think we're driving away business. We're simply redistributing it by not catering solely to ATVers, but to a wider array of visitors. So that ATVer is angry at Silverton. I don't know where that ATVer is going to go and find the same things that he or she will find on the Alpine Loop. So I encourage ATVers to come to town, but we have to have some way they can park their vehicles outside of town and come in either on a shuttle or in some manner, as was suggested earlier. I don't think we're going to lose any business in the long run. If anything, our business will continue to grow each season. Finally, our real problem here in Silverton is that we're trying to build a year-round economy so we can have a school, so we can have the kinds of institutions, the kinds of markets, restaurants that we need a year-round economy for. And our seasonal economy, sure, we need tourism. When we had the mine, we had a year-round economy. We have to replace that with a new year-round economy, which means we have to have the decent infrastructure so people who like the quality of life in Silverton can move here, perhaps telecommute for part of the time. These are the kinds of people who are our future if we're going to be a real community, not people who come here seasonally, conduct businesses, and go home. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We do have, I believe it is Becky Joyce. We are promoting you to panelist. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
This is Becky Joyce. I live at 1626 Cement Street. We've lived here almost 15 years, and we really enjoy this community and the peaceful place it is. I would just like to say I support the trustees who are speaking for the silent majority, who would like to see ATVs in the county and not in town. I support them because I know that they have been talking with many of the full-time year-round residents who make our living in town and who appreciate the peace and quiet. And I know that they are speaking for us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next, we have JJ Thompson. We are promoting you to panelist. The floor is yours.
Hi there. This is really generous of you to extend this opportunity out to folks who aren't able to make it in person. Thank you so much. I was sitting and watching all this with a friend. I'm in Indiana today and thinking about it from a friend who's in Pagosa. I had the good fortune of coming out a couple times and visiting your great town and enjoying the hospitality that everybody afforded. And the tension was palpable. I could tell that people had a really tough time on both sides of this situation. But the reason I jumped off the couch and hobbled over to join this Zoom was that it's really disturbing to me that the town's voted, not just once. And a very small group of people understandably felt very compelled to try to take what they perceived to be a problem and they felt like they had been entrusted with solving that problem. I have a lot of respect for that. That's a hard, tough decision to make. And clearly it's taken a lot of flack for those individuals. But the question I would pose out there is that if you've had this topic voted on, not just once, but twice, it would seem to be antithetical to everything that I've heard you all believe in and the values of the gritty folk who live there to try to usurp that process in between cycles. So my opinion on whether or not it's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do is quite frankly irrelevant. I don't live there, but the people who do have voted on it. It seems like it's an important enough decision to y'all that you might want to consider holding those big decisions until they can be put to a proper vote. Very grateful for the opportunity to share my thoughts, and thank you all for your hospitality.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kelly Honaker. You are being promoted to panelist. And the floor is yours.
Hi there. I'm Kelly Hobecker. Can you hear me?
We can.
I am a Silverton resident. I've lived here for about 15 years, and I'm not going to go into arguments of why. It seems like a lot of those arguments have been made, and it seems like right now what's helpful is just a sense of numbers of who is on the side for OHVs and who is against. And I just would like to say that I support the vote that happened asking OHVs to not be in town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we do have Hannah Green. You are being promoted to panelist. And the floor is yours.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. I just wanted to say I support the Board of Trustees' decision to eliminate OHVs in town. And I won't go into details other than that. Right now I'm standing outside and I can hear the birds. And to me, that's huge. And I'd like to be able to continue to hear them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we do have, I believe, David Reed. You are being promoted to panelist. The floor is yours.
Good evening. Couple of moving parts here, to say the least. I'd like to start with something that we haven't really talked about, which is the stewardship of our community for our public lands. We know what's happened out at Ice Lake with just too much usage and too much abuse, and we have clearly an awful lot of pressure on the backcountry that will increase with after this COVID situation, where people are flocking to our area. It's very flattering. But there is the concept of low usage. There's optimum usage of roads and of toilets and of all the basic infrastructure we have. And then there's the maximum usage. And unfortunately, I think we're at over maximum usage of our public lands. So sure, it's Forest Service, it's BLM, it's federal land. People have the nation has a right to come here and to enjoy the federal and the public lands. But as local citizens, I think we have a stewardship obligation, which is beyond our economics, in order to be stewards of those lands and not to destroy them and to not overpressure them. So that sounds counter to the OHV situation, which some folks may be surprised that I would say. I will tell you that doing it this way, with the 4 votes versus a public vote, after having public votes and having this slammed into the summer, when we have people that have been loyal contributors to our economy for years, is it's not appropriate. It's not classy. It's just not right. And so I think we've had 2 public votes. It'd be nice to have a public vote in November and have it not slam into our summer economy and to cause problems for people that have been loyal visitors to our grounds for a long time. Separate from that, if we can migrate our economy in the future to not be as dependent on all this pressure on the backcountry, and to lower that impact, that we can migrate our economy to something where we can be economically whole, and we can also be stewards of the public lands that we're really entrusted with to be risk of being dramatic, the entire country. This is a very special place, and we need to take care of it. But to do it without a vote and to just sort of jam it into this particular portion of the season is disrespectful to our visitors, to our business owners, and it just doesn't feel right in terms of a democracy. That's all I'd say.
Thank you.
Next, we do have Sue Morris by phone. She will be put on speakerphone, put up to the mic for the Zoom world to hear.
Go ahead, Sue.
Yes, thank you. I've been watching all of you this evening, and there have been some very eloquent.
Sue, can you mute your,
comments.
Sue, can you
Yes.
mute your computer because you're getting feedback?
That works.
That's better.
So I deeply value a livable and healthy community, and one that has respect and values the people who actually live here. With that in mind, I really want to thank the trustees for their recent vote to ban OHVs. Looking forward, the current proposal before you is a no-win situation and flies in the face of the community. It is intended as a sleight of hand to continue to provide a convenience. And that's what it is, a mere convenience for OHV visitors in town. I don't think we can further withstand the noise, the dust, and just the interruptions to our lives for a mere convenience. The greatest issue facing Silverton and the OHV population right now is just the intensity, the pure intensity of it all. It's killing us. We have so many visitations. We're not prepared for this amount of visitations, and we need to take this time to reframe and recover and go forward with different priorities. I ask that OHV users coming to Silverton would remember that this is not a playground. It's not a drive-by zoo. It's not a lawless Wild West movie set. It's a real town with real people of all ages. We've endured long, hard winters to be able to spend our summers here in town and in the mountains and enjoy them. So we do. That's what those 4 months mean to us, is we've waited and worked long and hard to be able to get out and enjoy them. We deserve your respect. And with that in mind, I'm just going to say enough is enough. And please plan to trailer up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next, we have Marianne Garvin. Marianne, I'm promoting you to panelist. And the floor is yours.
Can you hear me?
Cam.
This is Nicole Bellman calling from Marianne Garvin's computer. And I live at 1231 Snowden Street. I've lived in Silverton for 29 years. And I just want to thank the town board for their hard decision that they made and against having OHVs in town. And as our community, I realize that we do value OHVs and we do not want to ban them from our community, but we do want to ban them out of town. And I really appreciate the vote that you took for that. And I hope that you will continue to vote that same way. As a business owner, I have had only in vacation rentals, I have only had one cancellation so far. And that was from a house that was not even on the OHV route. So they were going to have to trailer their OHV anyways. And again, that knowledge of the people that come here with their OHVs, they've trailered them from wherever they could trailer them a few more miles out of town every day. This is not a big issue. The issue that we're facing is the quality of life. And what Tyler George said in the last meeting when they made the vote, when the town trustees made this vote, was the quality of life survey that came out and how many people voiced their opinion that their quality of life was affected by OHVs. That percentage was so high and so dramatic that this is something that we need to look at as a town and as our community and the people who live here year round, not the people who come here for a week and are inconvenienced by this. We as a town need to focus on the residents' quality of life. And if people are being run out of town or forced to leave or wanting to leave because they don't like Silverton anymore because it's become a kind of a junk show or a circus and we're feeling uncomfortable and we're feeling upset and angry, this is not okay. And this is not okay for our residents. So town board, I totally support your decision that you made. And I hope that you continue to go on that same path. And I thank you for the school that you're falling on. And it's time to rip that Band-Aid off and just move forward and make this decision. And other towns around the nation are looking at the same problems and they don't know how to deal with it. Marble, Moab, Uray, just, you know, they're not having it. So there's just a bunch of things that we just need to consider. And having OHVs in town is not something we need to consider. We need to continue this ban on them. And I thank you so much. That's all.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ken Webb. I'm promoting you to panelist and the floor is yours.
Can you guys hear me?
I can.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to thank, everybody for their comments. And to me, I don't really have an opinion one way or the other. I am a resident. I've had a business here for just over 20 years. I've voted on this topic twice. I would probably vote a different way if I had the opportunity to vote on it, which that's what I believe. I think what's concerning to me is the hate and the divide that seems to be going on in this town. And I feel like it shouldn't come down to a 4-3 vote from the Board of Trustees when the communities voted on it twice. I kind of wonder what would it feel like if it was the opposite, if the Board of Trustees just in a vote 4-3, 5 or 6 years ago said, yeah, we're gonna open it up to the town. So I think that anything that's this divisive in a town should really be given the consideration of time and let the community vote on it a third time. I believe the outcome will be the same, but I just think that it was, I'll just say it, I don't see the board ever act this quickly on anything, especially in big decisions. It's usually, they got to put it to the press and they got to talk about it. And they got to kick it around. And it just seems awful quick and the timing was poor. I think that the community deserves the time to hear what some of these groups have put together for solutions, and it should just be voted on by the people who have voted on it twice to be what it is. And like I say, I'd probably vote differently this time, but the divide in this town is what makes me sad. So I appreciate all the hard work from the board and all the people that put in service, and I appreciate all the comments. I know a lot of my friends don't like the ATVs. They don't bother me. I don't think my business is going to be affected by it. It's not going to be helped by it, but I'll survive. I'm sure somebody else will come by something. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to say something. Thanks.
Thank you.
No more hands on Zoom. I believe we have some more in-person public comment.
Sure.
First, I want to apologize for you being a little bit late. I had to come over the mountain here, but appreciate y'all giving us the opportunity to talk. I'm either blessed or cursed not being able to hear what everybody said prior to me getting up here, so I apologize if I go over it. Again, I think Ken, a couple of guys that we've heard here recently kind of just nailed it on the head. Aside from this coming so fast, especially as far as timing goes in the summertime, I don't think there's any business person or any business out there, if you were to walk the streets, there's very few, maybe one or two that would agree with the decision that was made. I would question whether the board even overstepped their bounds going to a 4-3 vote on something like that. Again, they talked about, the community's voted on it twice and both times it passed. And so I can tell you, I know people always look at me because, oh, sorry, my name's Larry Gallegos, I don't sound my backcountry. People always thought that I wanted them in town. And if you think about it logically, before they were legal in town, I was the only one in town that had them. I had to trailer them out every time. Okay. And not saying that I don't want them in town, but the thought process that you can kick them out in that short of a time, and especially at this time of year, I don't know anybody that comes in the summertime. Every business in Silverton has a business plan. I don't care who you are. The majority of your money, probably, I'm going to go out and limb, 67% of your money is made in the summertime. Okay. To do something this reckless, this close into it. I don't know, Loki, I'm sure Loki has had cancellations. We've had tons of cancellations and trying to explain to people now we're still going to get them out there. We're still open. We're not closed. I just think that it's poor timing on the board to do it, period. Again, you were voted in. We voted you in to represent the people. And I feel like, and I'm being very bold here, I feel like it was kind of just pulling the rug out from under our feet. We got this, we're going to vote on it. It's done. I was on the board when they did try to push it through the entire town. And the ordinance did say we couldn't take it away, the route, we could add on to it. And even at that time, the board said, we're going to push it to a vote. We're not going to extend it without the people's without the people's choice and let the people decide. And the people did decide to keep the same route. I do feel for Bruce. I would think it'd be easier for it to be opened up all town. But that's a whole nother matter. So I'm here for you this evening, asking that you all please put it forward, put it to vote. Again, we live in the United States of America. We're democracy, where the people are supposed to vote on these things, not some board. And that's what Americans nowadays have, a huge mistrust for government, a huge mistrust for everything else, because we have folks that we vote in to power and they forget that they're a public servant. They're not a dictator. They're not a king. You're one vote. And we appreciate your service. We appreciate your one vote. But at the same time, we don't want you to be a dictator. If you want to switch it, there's lots of opportunities to fix things throughout this. I was driving in today and I saw the little blue line. I liked it. It's something different, trial and error. But I would encourage you, at least for this summer, grow some, put the ATVs back out there, let our business plans continue for the summer and make our money for the summer. Put it back to a vote. Okay. It's easy to have 25 people on here say, I'm against them. I'm going to stop saying you don't have to kick me off this time. But you're getting a small sample size of the vote. I just encourage you to vote. Put it back to the vote. Put it back to the people. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, a real last call. Any other public comment, whether in person or on Zoom? All right, at this time, public comment is closed. Thank you all. And we move on to trustee discussion. Mayor Pro Tem.
I just wonder if before we start this discussion, if Anthony would be willing to just frame for us a little bit of like what these petitions say, what the options are, and how they interact with each other.
So, actually, hold on one second. If people would like to leave, why don't we just take like a 30-second recess so you don't have to tiptoe out?
Go ahead. So this evening is for.
Yeah, let's just clear it out.
All right, thank you.
So this evening is for consideration for OHV, has been referred to as OHV 2, the ordinance 2021-06, which is to allow OHVs on all the streets of the town of Silverton. That is what is being reviewed this evening. In regards to that petition, the town board was able to start beginning to consider this petition on June 3rd. And so we're in that time frame and consider this petition up to June 22nd. That is to go to all the streets of Silverton. If this is voted on, then that would be, it would have the same time frame as the previous petition. It would go into effect 30 days after publication.
And so what does a no vote mean and what does a yes vote mean?
A yes vote means that it will go into effect. Well, it would be published and it would go into effect 30 days after that publication. And be a yes vote unless a referendum is brought up and is successful. And then it would be that would be taken, it would be stayed. The trustees would come back and vote again. And if they confirm that vote, if they were to confirm the vote for the 2021-06, which is for all streets, if a referendum is successful and you were to vote on that again and pass it, it would be stayed, and you would use the referendum petition dates and set a vote based upon that.
A public vote.
A public vote, yes.
And my question is, it's for OHVs everywhere in town or the status quo? That was the second.
Well, so this was, I was referring to a yes vote.
Okay.
A no vote on this puts this into, if the board were to vote no within this 20-day period, then the ordinance would go to the ballot within the days. The board would need to set a vote.
Clerk sets the vote. The clerk is the presiding officer of all elections.
Okay. So the clerk decides to vote?
The clerk sets the vote.
The date?
Yeah, the date. That's the clerk's position.
Okay.
I believe we received guidance from Attorney Kosnick, which may be incorrect. The board sets the vote. And I hear what you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying the guidance we've received right now is unclear then, if you believe the clerk sets the vote.
I believe it's Colorado revised statutes that clarifies that sets the vote.
So it just seems like something we need to clarify.
Okay, and so my second, again, my follow-up question is, if we vote no on it and it goes to a ballot, what is the definition of status quo? Is it what we voted on last meeting? Or was it the previous status quo of the route?
It's the status quo on the day of the vote. Yes.
That's also inconsistent with what Attorney Cosmic advised us. Because the petition read status quo as the route. And so we would have to actually just ignore the word status quo. So if we had in fact adopted the close the route petition, it had become effective. And then we voted yes on this to open up the town or status quo and voted for quote status quo. We actually would reinstate the old status quo because that's specifically what the petition read as. And that was the advice we got from Attorney Cosmic.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be, there's no version of this where we vote no and the status quo is there's no OHVs in town.
Okay, so
let me ask, are you assuming that both of those are on the same ballot?
No, I'm only talking about the board's ability to make a decision now. I'm not talking about what happens if these are both on a public ballot in some future date. So unless I misunderstood your question, if we were to say, if we were to choose the status quo today, it doesn't matter what actually is the status quo. It's what was stated as the status quo in the citizen petition.
Today.
When the petition was.
when the petition was submitted.
Yeah.
Right. Is that what you said? Yeah. Did I just go in a big circle?
We're good.
Okay.
Okay, just to kind of carry on with, let me make sure I understand this. If this goes to a ballot, the language on the ballot would be the option to open the town to OHVs everywhere effective 30 days. Wait, sorry. If we vote, if this petition goes to a ballot, the language on the ballot refers to status quo as the route or open the town to OHVs everywhere. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So the question then becomes, the voters can decide on some OHVs in town or OHVs everywhere in town.
For the vote on ordinance 2021-06, that's correct.
Very clever.
Okay.
Trustee Brella.
Do you all understand why now at the last meeting, I was pushing it to all go to the vote of the public? So then the public then had all three choices on one measure.
Great.
That is why I pushed for that. But the rest of you didn't want to see that point of view because then you would have given the citizens the right to vote them out, to keep them on the route or keep them all over town. So that is the reasoning, but nobody wanted to listen to me. And I have a lot more things I'd like to say. We have a human problem. We have a human problem. Okay, it's not a user group problem. It's a human problem. Kirsten Brown touched on it just briefly. Ice Lakes. What happened at Ice Lakes? Too many hikers. Okay, so that is a human problem. So what are we going to do? The BLM or the Forest Service, I don't remember which one says that they control it. They're saying, let's do a permitting system. That was brought up in one of the OHV committee meetings for the working group that we were on. What about a permitting system? What can you do to help limit them? I agree that we were at capacity. I completely agree that we were at capacity. But what can we do to change that dynamic? How can we move into a permitting system? We've got to take into account the businesses that already exist. So what can be done? We've not tried as a board to do much of anything. Okay, I've been sitting here for 3 years and we all knew that this problem was coming up. Tommy Whiff and Bruce have been talking about the blue line down the roads for at least the last 5 years, because then at least you have a designated, delineated marking that shows where you can go. So it was thrown out. The citizens had come up with these ideas before, and then they've been pushed back. So once again, we were listening to the citizens. And as Angela said, why would I want to volunteer when you guys just kicked me in the teeth when I volunteered my time? So we didn't take into account what the community at large wants. And if the community at large, at the end of the season, voted them out, then that's the will of the people. And that's where this needs to be. This shouldn't be in our hands because, like everybody has pointed out repeatedly, it's gone to vote 2 different times, and both times it's passed. Maybe as a community, other people don't want them anymore that wanted them before, like Mr. Webb pointed out, but you've got to give the people the chance to vote on everything. So basically you shot yourself in their foot because now you don't get that all on one ballot. Okay, and I'm not talking about making another petition and another petition and another petition. When is enough enough? There's going to have to become a moratorium petition to stop this from continually happening. If the vote of the people votes it in, then we need to give it a 3 to 5 year plan and say, okay, if everybody hates it again in 3 to 5 years, whatever it is, then you go through and you do the process again. But you let the people decide. It's not just us. Jim made a very impassioned speech about all the workers. Do you know how many of my employees have come at me? Like, oh my God, my kid doesn't get to go to dance now because I work here to make sure I can pay for her dance lessons. How do you think that makes people feel? Because basic economics tells you, if you've got this level up here of income and you take it away down to here, you have to have something to replace it with. All user groups matter, but it's a human problem. And that was proven at the Ice Lakes fire. That's proven in the Winnemuche. What are we talking about? They're talking about shutting it down in certain areas because the fecal matter along the trail from hikers are changing the ecosystem. It's a human problem. It's not an individual user group. Were we overrun last year? Oh, yes, we were. I was exhausted. But I also lost $200,000 worth of business because I was shut down. So did it help me recover? I hemorrhaged money. Nobody out there lied to you about businesses. I hemorrhaged money in the wintertime. I pay out of my pocket to keep all those people employed so they can have year-round jobs because I want them. That's being part of a community. That's actually living and working with your neighbor. So we have a human problem. What can we do to make it better in the backcountry? What we just did pushed all of the pressure onto the county. And that is not right. The county doesn't have staging areas. Somebody talked about trailing a boat in. Well, of course, but boats and lakes built parking lots for you to put your stuff, and it's a secure area. So we don't have that. And I don't know how many of you own a toy hauler, but the toy haulers were designed to do just that. That's $100,000 rig you're asking somebody to put out in the middle of the county. That just adds more pressure now on him again, because now you're going to have different sorts of break-ins, vandalism, damage. Were we overrun last year? Yes. Do we need to figure out how to, I don't know, keep it, but do it limited? So that way we can start to raise up other user groups and we don't have this massive disparity. But it's a community-wide thing and the people need to vote on it. And I don't think that that was right, what happened at the last meeting, because you took away the people's right to say no. And now what are we gonna get? Another petition? How many, are they gonna petition us to death? Seriously, did you ever think of that? There's nothing stopping another one and another one after that and another one after that, unless we make a decision. And if it goes all to the vote of the people, and then we put a moratorium on it, and then we revisit it in a couple of years, but we've got to come up with solutions. And so no user group is more important than the other. That's the vital thing. All tracks matter. That was the campaign 5 years ago, because I don't think there was a single person that voted on that didn't believe that that was true. All tracks do matter. I want the fishermen, I want the hikers, I want the bikers, I want people to come up, like the gentleman was talking about, the paraplegic veterans. Good God, that's their only means of transportation to explore the backcountry. So we have to do the right thing, and it's letting the people vote. So retracting this last ordinance and then making them all go to the ballot together is the smartest way, because then the people have their say. But we do have a human problem. So what are we going to do to fix the human problem? We've been told, we've been found. So how do we get unfound? And I'd like to read from you a few little things of the quality of life survey. People keep pushing forward. Now I'm going to tell you, myself and not a single one of my employees had time to fill it out because it came right in the middle of the season. Things you dislike. Small business, road traffic, health, winter ski visitors, lack of culture, vehicles, money, business, tourism, tourists, economy, air, environment, pollution, motorized, housing development, noise, community services. How do you dislike community services? Because we don't have enough. That's how you dislike community services. But how do you dislike divisiveness? Well, that's what the situation we're in right now. Because it should not just be our vote, it's their vote. Things we'd like, the mountains, the beauty, the town. But right now, the town doesn't even like each other. I got off Facebook for a reason. And it was the best decision I ever make. I love it when our esteemed sheriff always calls it to Facebook. He is 100% right, because you can say whatever you want on behind a keyboard, but when you have to look me in the eye and look my kids in the eye and look your neighbor in the eye, it changes the way that you act. You're not hiding behind a computer. You're looking at your neighbor in the face and you're seeing the impact decisions have on your neighbor. Thank you.
Barney.
Okay, so if this can go to an election, is there a way to get the option of not having OHVs in town on a ballot?
We're not sure that's what we're voting on tonight.
It's just a question. Right now,
Sorry?
She's just asking a question.
And I'm answering it.
She didn't ask the question. Right now, as the OHV ordinance 1/2021-5, which is the ban, comes into place on the 20th of this month, right? There's not anything, unless a referendum changes that, it will go into effect on the 20th of this month. If that happens, then the only vote that's going to go now in the fall would be for ordinance 2021-06, depending on how you vote. And that would be the only vote on OHVs, unless the trustees were to initiate a measure for a vote on their own. Did that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'll weigh in here a little bit. The business owners that we've heard from this evening, I absolutely agree with you. I understand people are worried and they're scared. And, you're going to lose out on revenue. I spoke at length about quality of life and health issues at the last meeting. I'm not going to go back into it. But when I sat on this board, a lot of people would come on the public comment and accuse us of not doing anything. You guys don't do anything. You send everything to committee. You don't take anything head on. So I did a lot of research and I spent a whole lot of time looking into this issue because a lot of my very good friends, they either run OHV businesses or they drive OHVs. I like riding in OHVs. And somebody called it chicken shit. That's the furthest thing, because I really had to put myself out there and really risk, putting a lot of personal relationships, in jeopardy. As Bruce mentioned earlier, my personal property has been vandalized directly after the OHV vote that I made. And, you know, whether coincidental or not, I've been here for 40 years and that hasn't happened before, not to me. So, and the way it was done and the fashion it was done leads me to believe it had something to do directly with my vote. We're acting like this is an all or nothing proposition. They're not, OHVs are not going to stop coming here because we don't allow them in town. That's just hyperbole. Okay, we have the best, most beautiful mountains in the lower 48 states, man. I've been to as many of them as I could, and this is it. This is the best. And if the inconvenience of them having to walk into town because we take care of our full-time year-round citizens is too much for some of them to bear, I think that we can handle that. And I still think that a lot of them are going to come to town. A lot of folks have mentioned tax revenue. I've looked at every town around us, whether they allow OHVs or not. And guess what? We're not special. We haven't got increased by ourselves because of OHVs. We've increased the same amount as every other town in the area. Okay, we're discovered. People want to get out into the mountains. They want to come to small mountain towns. During COVID, we saw an 88% increase in people trying to move to small mountain towns with less than 50,000 people. Okay, I can guarantee you that all those 88% people aren't all OHV people. Like, we are going to have business here. We survived without OHVs in the past. We limited them from coming into town. I don't see how shutting them off from the town is this sort of life or death proposition that a lot of people seem to have made it into. It's not. And the thing that does concern me is I have spoken to a lot of people. I didn't come out here and just throw that vote out there and say, I hate OHVs, I'm getting rid of them. I ride OHVs. But I've spoken to a lot of people who have been here for, some of the families have been here for 40 years, some of them have been here for 4 years, some of them have been here for 4 months. And they have said that, and these are full-time, year-round residents with families and jobs that have said that they will move if this continues. And if we have another summer like last summer, and another, you know, and another, and another, and another, they are going to leave. And then all we need to do is look to Lake City as an excellent example of what we can turn into, and we'll just have 2 transient populations. We'll have the community that moves here in the summer, which you can't really call a community, and they'll work and they will cater to the summertime tourists, and then they'll leave. And then we'll have the people that come in the winter and they'll cater to the winter tourists, and then they'll leave. And we need to diversify our economy. And this idea that we just have, there's only one thing that keeps us going, it's not true. It's just not the case. We're going to have other user groups in the summer. And we've got bigger issues to deal with than whether or not OHVers have to walk into town or, you know, trailer their machines out of town. We do have a housing issue. We do need to figure out what to do over here with Kendall, which, as you may have seen in several meetings ago, I'm not a proponent of the RFP that they're coming out with. I think that we need to find alternate routes of income and revenue and different economic drivers. But what happens when we chain ourselves to OHVs and gas prices shoot up and then they can't come? It's happened to us time and time and time again. We find one thing and we say, damn everything else, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to hold on to it. And then the mine shuts down. And then the next thing comes along and it's the train, and then we have a fire and the train shuts down. And now we have OHVs. What happens when for some reason they decide to, you know, cut OHVs out? This is not, and you know, if we stop them coming right now, if we ban them this summer, you know, I just don't see how all of a sudden we're going to be a ghost town without any tax dollars. I think that that is disingenuous. I think anybody that says that is just being disingenuous. And just finally, I'm going to quote an article I read recently that was written about Silverton and about this issue that we're going through right now by Jonathan Thompson from Durango. And he lived here for years and he ran the paper, and he said, we have a malady called the golden goose syndrome, which is the tendency to lionize and fetishize a community's main industry or business, be it mining in Silverton, coal mining in Wyoming, oil and gas in New Mexico, industrial recreation in Moab, and then we attack those who try to hold these industries accountable, even as the geese peck out our eyes, poop poison into our streams, or set fire to our forests, so long as they continue to lay golden eggs. And I went over the health issues of, these are real issues. These are not made up. It's not a little noise that we have to deal with. These are real issues that have been documented and that they have released. There's plenty of research out there and medical papers to support. We all know what dust does to your pulmonary system. Continued noise day after day after day after day. I talked about how it compounds. One machine may be built to the spec of, whatever our noise ordinance is. You put 5 of them together and all of a sudden it's outside of that by 25, 30 decibels. Fill the town with 100 of them. I mean, and at the end of the day, like I said, it's not life or death. Nobody is going to all of a sudden come here in July, and if no OHVs are here, there's not going to be a soul in sight. We're still going to have tax revenues. People want to come here. We've got the best mountains in the United States. They're going to come. We're protecting our full-time year-round residents. We're doing what they've asked us to do. And my vote 2 weeks ago was the furthest thing from chicken shit, because I've taken a lot on the chin on this one, but I'm going to continue to make sure that we try and keep them out of town and better ways of mitigating it in the future, work towards having a better plan in the future. I think we obviously could have done much better as a board in creating staging areas, giving the community more time. But at the same time, I feel like at no point is it going to be an easy time for anybody. People are going to be worried and scared, and I understand it. But I think that I really think that it's not going to be the end of the world. So that's where I stand.
So I looked up powers of the clerk and deputy, Title 31-11-118. And it is municipal elections, municipal initiatives, referendum, and referred measures. The clerk shall render all interpretations and shall make the decisions as to the controversies and other matters arising from the operations of this article. All powers and authority granted to the clerk by this article may be exercised by the deputy clerk in the absence of the clerk. So that to me says they run an election. So I would like to see what Paul was citing, because that's what I've read in the past for who it actually goes to. The definition and the time frame has already been laid out for all of us repeatedly. And so that's where I'm basing my decision, or my statement, I shouldn't say my decision, on that Kelly is the one that sets the date for a municipal election of any type, other than what's organized by state's town statutes.
Thank you. Helpful, but I think this board needs to defer to legal counsel, and we just need to have that clarified before we can.
Yeah, but that's why I wanted to make the statement, so everybody knows what Title 31 says, which is what I quoted.
I'll jump in here. Seems like a good time, as any. I've appreciated all my conversations I've had with folks of the public over the last 2 weeks, especially ones with lots of civility rather than screaming. And as a board, we deal with issues of equity and issues of equality. And as representatives of our community, we need to make decisions when it comes to equitable issues, because the outcome of those decisions are weighted differently. So for example, the OHV route is a really good example of an equity issue, because whoever's being affected by that route is going to be far outweighed by those who aren't affected by that route, whether it's people who are living along the OHV route who are unequally impacted as those who don't live on that route. As a board, it's our job to decide on those equity issues. That's why, things like the architectural overlay district, that doesn't go to a public vote, because the outcome of that decision is weighted differently to our community members. We revised the vacation ordinance rentals, and that is also an equity issue. That's why it didn't go to a public vote. I think if we're going to have a public vote, it needs to be egalitarian, and we need to either vote for all streets or no streets. I think having those three options does our community a disservice and causes more divisiveness because you're combining equity issues and equality issues within a single ballot initiative. And it doesn't make sense to do that. Because as representative of our community, I need to look out for the minority stakeholders because they will never win in a general or popular vote. So I don't know if it's more prudent to accept this petition as it is and open up all streets, then we can have a referred measure that could be either all streets or no streets. But I think we're doing ourselves a huge disservice if we have a ballot that is either all streets or status quo or all three issues, because you're just combining those equity issues and egalitarian issues, and it's creating this divisiveness. I think we do need to let people decide. I think the point that many people have brought up that people voted this issue in and we should vote it out or keep it are super valid points. And I had great conversations with people I disagreed with, and I think it does come to that of if we are going to have a general vote, it needs to be either all or nothing. Because determining the status quo, you're letting some people decide the fate of other people in a way that doesn't balance things evenly in our community. And that's what's created this devolving of this issue over the last 6 years that we've had OHVs. A great example on the state level is the wolf reintroduction vote. It's an equity issue that went to a general ballot issue, and the Front Range divided the outcome for the Western Slope. It's the same type of issue that we're dealing with here.
Trustee Bierma, I think that was really well said and really well expressed about the challenge in voting on this issue as trustees. And I agree that this is OHVs benefit unequally and they impact unequally. And I know that I appreciate the comments that we've heard tonight so much. They weigh heavily on my mind. This is certainly not a decision that I have taken lightly or just all of a sudden in May decided to start thinking about. I definitely agree that the timing is really hectic and chaotic and that is difficult for businesses. And it may or may not be the process that I would have preferred, certainly. And I think Trustee Barella raises a really good point that this system of government of petition, referendum is really unhealthy and confusing and is also terrible for business and our community. And I do think that we've been elected to make decisions on behalf of the community and the community that lives here year round and invests in not just monetarily, but invests in our families and our livelihoods. And this is just not an easy, it might be making it look easy, but it's just not easy. And I think part of the issue in discussing this for me that's so challenging is that we disagree on a premise. I think we disagree on the premise that in order for Silverton to succeed financially, that we depend on OHVs driving through our town. And that's something that I'm not sure how we ever prove or disprove. And we look for data and we look for evidence and we cite, sales tax numbers and we look at other towns, and it kind of depends on like what's persuasive to you. I think that is how you get to the conclusion about what you think we need for Silverton. And so I guess I just wanted to throw out that is it possible that, and I think Trustee George spoke to this, is it possible that that premise is wrong? Is it possible that we don't need to depend on OHVs driving through town to survive as a community. I do agree that we need community services. I totally agree that we need infrastructure to support this community. I also agree that we have an abundance of visitors coming to our community. And I actually just drove up to Denver last weekend via steamboat because of all these road closures. And I realized that there's no shortage of people traveling around to places all over Colorado in all modes of transportation. And there's no place like Silverton. And for whatever reason, whether people come here because it's novel, whether they come here because it's nostalgic, we are not going to get rid of the charm. And we're not going to get rid of the spectacular scenery, and we aren't going to get rid of our great roads. And I actually think that this is a constraint, certainly not having OHVs coming down Main Street, but it's a constraint on recreation. Like, this is not a constraint on clean water, availability of food, or housing availability. Like, this is a constraint on something that people are doing to have fun. And I think constraints are fertile ground for invention. And I actually, my 8-year-old daughter just the other day was like, wouldn't it be just nice to have an amenity at campgrounds or wherever? And I think we had someone speak about, you know, providing shuttles or campgrounds providing trailering services. Someone on the Zoom talked about shuttle services for raft trips. I just paid $100 for a shuttle to go on a raft trip. I think there are business opportunities involved in the constraint. And I think that this is a situation that's causing our gaze to be so near us. We're thinking in 30-day and 60-day increments. And I think that's important because we want our businesses to survive and we want people to be able to live here. I think what I'm trying to do is sort of urge us to lift our gaze a bit and look out farther down the road to 5 years and 10 years. And I really think that OHVs in Silverton are they're a community wrecker. And 5 or 10 years out, this decision will have propped up summer businesses and maybe kept afloat our winter businesses, but it won't have at its core solved a systemic problem that we have in our seasonal economy. And it doesn't necessarily speak to or solve economic issues that we have coming up longer and longer out down the line. And so we will continue to be beholden to one user group. And if I've heard anything from this community, it's that we don't want to sell out. We don't want to be Aspen, and we don't want to be Telluride, and we don't want to be Crested Butte and Moab, or, you know, but this to me feels like a sellout. And I'll just say it. I do not have a personal agenda to get Kendall and turn it into a ski area. That sounds like a nightmare to me, actually. It would be very difficult and challenging. But if it's a community project, that's something else. It's certainly not my project. It may or may not be the right fit for Silverton. If it's the wrong fit and our community speaks up about that and doesn't want to do it, let's not do it. OHVs, our community speaks up. It feels like a sellout to me. I think it gets in the way of our future opportunities to grow and develop in other ways. And I don't think it's a healthy or viable long-term economic plan. So I would definitely support prioritizing a budget that works with multiple user groups and supports facilitation and management needs for OHV use so they can continue to come. I think people love it here. And I would support stabilizing this user group and creating amenities for them so they can be enjoying that activity. But I think coming through town is just disruptive, and I guess to echo Trustee George comments, I just fundamentally disagree with the premise that we need them here to be a viable community. And this is really hard. This is a really hard seat to be in. And I signed up for it. And it's enjoyable and it's a good challenge, but it's certainly not something I'm doing for selfish reasons.
Trustee Wiegert or Trustee Harper, thoughts?
I think this has been a fantastic discussion. I've really enjoyed hearing what all the trustees have had to say and just really taking it all in.
I'll say something. We talk about quality of life. We talk about equality. We talk about user groups. We talk about the citizens of Silverton. Yet this board usurped every one of you in our vote several weeks ago. Every one of you. For it, against it, doesn't matter. This was a public issue since day one. This should have gone to the vote since day one. Everyone that's here tonight, everyone watching television tonight, thank you for attending. This should never have come down to a 4-3 vote. Never. I said it last time. We usurped the authority of the citizens of this town. We did. We took it upon ourselves, and we're still doing it tonight, to determine what everybody's quality of life is. We're taking it upon ourselves to determine what your business should be, what your choice should be for your way of life and how to make a living. What we did not consider are the individuals, the families. It's not just families on this side, it's not families on that side, it's all the families of this town, all the individuals of this community that didn't get a vote, didn't get a voice because we chose it. We were wrong. I don't care what side of the vote you were on, 4-3, 3-4, doesn't matter. We took it upon ourselves and we were wrong. Because that choice, that vote belongs to each and every one of you. That's all I'm going to say.
Amen. Amen.
I think you make some super valid points, and I would question our job as representatives of the people if we aren't able to represent all aspects of this community, and I think that's why the vote was 4-3. And if our community doesn't trust us as representatives, or don't feel like we can represent our community, in all honesty, why even have trustees? Why don't we just disband the trustees in the mayoral system and have a direct democracy in our community? And I mean that in all sincerity. If we want to just go by majority takes all, then let's commit to it. But if we want to have a representative system that represents all aspects of our community, then we need to also respect that system as well.
I'm impressed. This was one of the most thoughtful, well-articulated, divisive discussions I've seen this community have since I started watching board meetings. Thank you to the community, and thank you to this board for doing that. I'm proud of the board for being able to have that conversation, and for being civil. And I agree with everyone that this is a tough position that this community is in. I've been hearing the community ask for and to work towards year-round economic diversification since long before I moved here. And this is what that looks like. These decisions are tough. They don't make everybody happy. It takes money out of some people's pockets. And we just have to decide as a community if we want to commit to that or not. I was confident after however many years of hearing economic diversification, year-round economy, that we were ready to commit to that. We didn't pick the timing of this decision. This was a citizen petition that came in front of us. If we'd been left to our own devices, this probably wouldn't have happened. But we were asked to do something. And I agree with Trustee Birma's statement that the route disproportionately impacts some citizens over others and should be a decision by this board. I don't think because an issue is divisive, it should go to a vote of the people, because that means anytime someone wants there to be a vote of the people, all they have to do is raise their voice and be angry. And this community has been doing that for about 50 years. And that's not okay. I think whatever happens, we're gonna have some real upset people and some scared people. I don't think we're gonna have any happy people. And we need to figure out how to fix that. Right now, we're dysfunctional. And we need to become functional. And that doesn't mean that will be without conflict. We will always have conflicts, but we need to figure out how to be functional, how to not have a trustee decision result in people feeling attacked and scared, for their well-beings being threatened, for people looking for illegal actions just because they're unhappy with the decision of the board. Let's use the democratic process, which I see us also doing. So my last thought on all this is I think that Trustee Barella's points were well made and that the Ice Lakes comparison is a good one, except that their decision was to close it until they figure out what to do.
Their decision was to close it because it caught on fire.
And because we have a people problem and we can't access it safely, like you said, it's a people problem. We're facing a lot of growth problems. Growth problems are resulting in housing prices increasing, lack of housing, too many people on the streets, walking, mountain biking, OHV, whatever. If we follow the county or BLM or state forest model, they say, put a pin in it, we'll figure it out. And in some ways, that's what this board did 2 weeks ago. The route doesn't work. We've been hearing from Bruce for years. I don't know what the answer is, but it's probably not the route. And so I don't know where we go from here, but it's a difficult, challenging issue, and I'm excited to work through it with everybody.
Yeah, I would agree that if it sounds like it will go to a vote. Again, it's the route. I agree. The route shouldn't be an option available. I think that a lot of people's minds in this town might be changed. Right now, it doesn't affect a lot of people and they may benefit from it, but they don't deal with it. And some of us disproportionately deal with it day in, day out, all day, all night. And that's not fair. So it needs to be an all or nothing vote. I think if we're going to have them in town, they get to go everywhere. Everybody gets to share the load or nothing. But right now it's not fair. And it needs to be, as Jordan said, it needs to be equal and equitable. And if there's a vote on it, I think it should be an all or nothing vote. And this route, not only is it hard for the sheriff to keep up with, the signage issues, the education issues. I sat on the OHV committee. Quite honestly, after listening to Deputy Jacobs, I didn't think that the OHV committee had any solutions to deal with the route. We didn't, no viable ones. He said, education isn't the problem. He said he'd watched several groups of people drive up, read the sign, and break the law. So I think we're at a crossroads, and I think that we need to decide as a town whether or not this is it. We need these things. We need them in town. And if that's the case, and the voters decide that that's the case, I think that it should be everywhere. And I think we would lose a lot of year-round full-time families and residents because of that. And I think it would dramatically change the fabric of the town. And I think it would actually destroy the community. I think, like I said, you'd have a wintertime community, maybe in a summertime community, but with the transients and the people moving in and out, I think that you wouldn't see a year-round functioning community. So I think that's something to keep in mind. But that said, if the people want to vote, I think it should be an all or nothing vote. And I really think that Trustee Barella made great points. If once it's done, it should be done. And if that's the way it goes, and in 5 years, it's been a mistake, or if there's some way that we could put benchmarks on it and say, well, have we reached this point? Have we looked at this? What are our goals? But it can't be a petition every other week or every other 2 weeks, because that's dysfunctional also.
Yeah, that leads me to, I'm happy to continue discussing our thoughts on OHVs in town. I also just have like a lot of logistical questions about, I think sometimes in this position, it's hard to know what we don't know. And we don't have an attorney, our municipal town attorney sitting in the room with us. But I guess I just wanted to kind of put some other questions about the way this works out to you, Anthony, Administrator Edwards, or just to note that I'm wondering, like, I had a question similar to Trustee Barella's, like, how does ballot language, how can it be, this is not noted in the ballot or in the petition to reflect the duration of the decision's effect. So I don't know if we have any ability to revise or add to that without making a ballot really confusing.
The ballot language is what's on how it's been submitted.
And is there a tool available to town governments to affect how long a decision can stand?
Not sure I understand your question, Trustee.
We can't change the language on the ballot at this point, which is what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Is there another pathway to noting how long we would want a decision to take effect? To Trustee Barella's point, like, we don't want this to just go petition, referendum, petition, referendum, petition, referendum. This is not effective government.
The board can set for something to go effect by a vote of the voters on their own unilaterally.
But it would be in a separate election.
Well, if elections are set at the same time and they can fall within the same parameters of whatever's being done.
I'm not following.
Is my question confusing?
Yes.
How do we make a decision that can take effect and remain in effect for a period of time longer than until the next petition comes in?
Longer than it takes to get the next petition. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
So you're not talking about the effective date, you're saying like it's not questioned until a certain, I mean, I think the.
Yeah, I'm not talking.
Set up like this, the people have the power, right? So the people can do whatever they want, whenever they want. So if they decide they don't like a decision or a vote.
Or us.
Or us, they change their mind. And I think in larger places, it takes a larger number of people, which is a harder barrier. In smaller places, we just have a little more power individually to, 5% of the electorate, 25% of the electorate to do these things. And so we're just, we're able to, as a community, I think, move a little faster through these administrative processes. So I think the answer is the people have the power to do that, and there's no way for the board to override that.
No, but the board does have the power to enact a moratorium, but if the voters speak out and we create a, I don't know, 3-5 year, whatever, I don't care the number, I'm just throwing this to the wind, then you can say we can't be revisited by a citizen's ballot petition and or so on and so forth until this time frame has expired and the following conditions have been tried. And so that's a way to stop it from constantly coming up. And I don't care which direction it is. I don't care if it's for or against. It doesn't matter which side you're on. What happened on May 18th knocked the legs out of every single one of the businesses. They had no idea that this was coming, and that's what hurts. It's not the fact that give it to the people, because then they're actually going to vote. That's what a citizen's petition does, is it puts the power in the people. So why wouldn't you empower the people? If they want it out, then they'll vote it out. If they want it in, they'll vote it in. But it's their petition. It's their power. And I know what you're saying about equity. Okay. So we are a republic to begin with. So we're voted, each one of them voted for each one of us to represent their voice. So it's just like national politics. Who has the loudest voice right now? Who has the loudest voice right now? It's obviously not the business owners and the pro-OHV people. It was obviously going the other direction. And I take into account what you said, because yes, Kyle Message is one of your best friends. And yes, he did have a business for many, many years that depended on that income. So I get it. I understand. But I don't really think, because it's been voted on by the public 3 different times, that it was a good decision to just take the power away from the people. So whatever has to happen in order to get it on the ballot, to make sure that the people vote for it.
I will echo what Jordan said earlier. I mean, depending on how passionate any group of people is about an issue, what point do we serve? Because then anybody that really wants to be loud enough about any issue, they're going to get a petition, and then we put it to a citizen's vote. And so, but then we're representatives of that. Like I said, I put a lot of time into it. I spent a lot of time talking to people. And like I said, I did read the quality of life survey, which you can read the whole thing, which again is disingenuous, because there were high, they rated them, and the number 1 ranked thing was OHVs in town. And number 2 was dust, and number 3 was noise. And those are, we're here to protect health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Silverton. And the first 2 are directly impacted by OHVs in town.
And I questioned, and I will repeatedly question, the timing of that survey coming out in August, in the height of the season. So you've got.
It should, that's when they're all here.
But you've got a disparity of people being able to sit down and fill it out.
How many people actually filled out that form?
More than 200.
219.
219.
Is 219 our entire community?
That's my
The
point.
largest.
I understand.
Ever had.
I'm gonna touch base really quick, Mayor, on what you just said about Ice Lakes. They erected a gate and shut it down. This board, at our last meeting, essentially erected a gate and shut everybody down.
Oh, come on.
We did, on a 4-3 vote. On a 4-3 vote, we shut down an entire group of people, individuals and families that depend on a certain segment of our tourism dollars. And we put up a gate and said, you're not welcome. That's what we did. And I think you so eloquently framed that in the gate at Ice Lakes. What we're looking at right here, and I'm looking at it on my screen. This needs to go back to the people. That's it. It was the people's vote twice already over. It needs to go back again.
I just want to address what Trustee Varela said quickly, just because I think it's a cultural shift that needs to change in town rather than us putting like a moratorium on something. Because I think if we put a moratorium on things like that, we're taking the power away from our citizens, and I don't think that's right. I think it's a cultural shift that we need to make as a community, and I think it's super hard to do right now, being butting heads so much. But I feel like putting in legislation that would do that would take the power away from our community.
And I completely disagree, and we're allowed to disagree, because if the public constantly votes it in and you've got a faction that votes it out or wants it out, then what are we doing here?
I totally agree. And I think it's a cultural, we have a petition culture, and it's hurting this community.
But let's put into perspective that tourism is our #1 industry. We don't have anything else. We don't have the mine anymore. I know a lot of people in the audience. My father worked at the mine. My father worked with a lot of these gentlemen out here underground. They knew how to have each other's backs. That was a different thing, totally different world. We actually did have something called community back then. Didn't matter. People would put their things aside to show up at the same bar at the Avon at 5 minutes to 2 when the bus got in, and have a beer or two. So that culture is gone. The mining industry is gone. So to try to say that we need to fundamentally change things again, why? Okay, I'm not talking about OHVs. I'm talking about the community at large. Okay, the community needs to learn how to get along. They need to learn how to put their differences aside. If you're supporting your neighbor's business, I'm sorry, I thought the letter from Sherry and Dana Chambers was extremely impassioned. I mean, that's your colleague. And she's talking about selling out and having to move because that is going to cripple her business. And they won't be able to be open in the wintertime. How many love the fact that you can walk down there and buy something for 25 cents? That's what we're impacting right now. They're not saying that it's okay to get rid of it right now. They're saying it's okay to get rid of it in the future. Don't knock the legs out of underneath me right now. Give me an opportunity to recover my business for this summer. And then if the people voted out at the end of the summer, then the people voted out at the end of the summer, because then people, like Angela pointed out, have an opportunity to change their marketing, to figure out a new direction, rather than just whipping it out from underneath it and cutting the legs off. That's what we're forgetting. It has nothing to do with anything else. These all arose from people either wanting them or not wanting them. Right? It didn't arise because we decided to just knock the legs out of all the business owners in town that want to be here in the wintertime, that need to be supported by this community. I can't imagine doing 25 cents a day, but Jerry and Dana stay open for 1 bolt. So that hurts them as well. That's why I'm saying it should be the people's. It should be the people's. Not every issue needs to be. And I'm saying the petition culture needs to go away. Bring it to the board. Scream and yell it to us. We're the people that make the decisions. Quit yelling at staff. I'm so upset about what a conversation that I had with Todd. Stop yelling at staff. Staff didn't make these decisions. Staff should have never had to field all those phone calls coming in. Neither should the people that work at the visitor center. That should all come to us. Everybody should be yelling at us. Every single day that staff fields a question or gets yelled at, that's our responsibility. We're the ones who should be taking the heat, not them. And I am sorry for the way that the three of you have been yelled at and treated. People are upset because you knocked the legs out from underneath their vacations and their businesses. Letting it go to the vote of the people at the end of the summer would have been the very best possible, because maybe by then, a lot of these business owners that are in support of it might have actually said, oh, I'm tired of it. But we didn't give them the opportunity. But now you only have one petition you can consider. And that is to open up the whole town or leave the route in place. So that vote 2 weeks ago took the power away. We don't know what the people would have voted. We have no idea. People like Ken Brett, what did he say? Well, I voted for it once. I might have changed my vote this time. Good, let the people decide. That's the kind of ballot issue that needs to be in their hands, just like voting all of us in or voting all of us out.
No, those are some great points. It didn't really necessarily address what I brought up, but no, thank you.
Traditionally, Mr. Mayor, yourself or our administrator would read the ordinance out loud. If you'd like to read it out loud so everyone can hear it, both here in the audience and at home.
We're in the middle of a discussion, but we can do that before we make any decisions.
Perfect.
Yeah, I wish we could have gotten to this issue earlier in the year as well. I think this is really hard and really chaotic. And I don't understand how it did not rise to the top of our agenda back in the fall or at the turn of the year, or really any time other than right now.
I can go ahead and read the ordinance. If that's the request of Trustee Harper.
I guess that's where we're going. Is discussion over?
We're starting to be a bit circular. Trustee Roller?
What's that? I was pulling the ordinance up.
Okay.
Getting my hotspot back on.
Sure. Well, I just didn't know if you were looking up something that you wanted to share. Okay. Any further discussion? I'll read the ordinance. Are we supposed to read the ordinance? Is that correct?
Well, if it's going to go into effect, I think.
Just out of, I guess, curiosity, what, if we were to accept this ordinance, would we be able to make a referred ballot measure that could make it an all or nothing vote?
I want to make clear, every ordinance that is come before you by petition is a very set construct. You all as a board can set anything to the people. You can set an ordinance for the people to consider. It's a separate question. These ordinances have been put before you by the people.
So to quickly recap, our options in front of us tonight are to accept this ordinance, which would make it effective within 30 days and override the decision made 2 weeks ago. Is that correct?
The first ordinance, my understanding is that the first ordinance would,
it would become effective on June 20th at midnight, and then this one would be effective 30 days from now. So we'd have some stub period where the route is closed, and then we'd have the 30 days from now where the route is open. So that's option A.
What's before us right now today?
Okay, so option A, if we were to vote to approve this ordinance, it would then be on a timeline to be effective in 30 days. The other ordinance would stand up to that date. Our other option would be to vote no to this ordinance, which would result in a citizen vote at some point between August 2nd and November 1st, as set by either the clerk or the board, subject to clarification of the earlier discussion and advice from council. Third option is to do nothing, in which case it also would go to a citizen vote between August 2nd and November 1st.
Would there not also be an option for the board to put to the people a ballot that would be cleaner than the current ballots proposed?
I don't think at this point there's any way for this ballot, for this citizen petition to go away. Is that correct?
Or for the language in it to change.
Or there's no way for this to go away or for the language to change. I think from what you guys said before, the only outside option would be to have an additional citizen petition or a trustee referred ballot measure to add another option to the same ballot. So you'd have, decision 1, this, open the town or reinstate the route. Decision 2, whatever the referred ballot measure is. And then that it just compounds in confusing this. So like if both had been on there, decision 1 would have been close the town, have the route. Decision 2 would have been open the town, have the route. And then they could have had conflicting results. So the first one could have had close the town as the majority. The second one could have had reinstate the route as the majority. And my understanding is then it would be whichever one had the total most votes would control between those two conflicting results. So no matter what, between the two citizen petitions, we had a very confusing set of options.
Just to add to the fun and confusion, it's my understanding that a referendum has been, I don't know what you would call it, taken out.
Certified,
but has not been submitted.
That is correct.
And then
with respect to the first petition. So how does that potentially interact with decisions and votes?
A referendum is submitted and found sufficient within the time frame, and there's no successful protest. Protest being because of a deficiency, okay? Then the board will review the decision that was made before. If they are, and they will vote on that. If they vote to keep it in place, meaning on the first petition, which was to ban OHVs, then that will be set for an election. If they vote to repeal, it will go back to the initiative as it was originally set. And you will use those dates, which would be these dates that we originally have, and their vote would need to be set between July 16th and October 14th.
To clarify, if it were to get repealed, it would go back to the original set of dates.
If a referendum is put before you, it stays and the route stays the same. If it's successful, the referendum successful. And you will either take a vote to keep it the same, and then you will use the referendum dates, or if you repeal, you will go back to the original dates of the petition that was submitted to ban OHVs, which was ordinance 2021-05.
But at this time, we just have a certified referendum, but not turned in with signatures. So we can't make a decision as if it will be turned in or will not. We have no, we can only decide what's based on what the facts are today.
That's why I keep saying that's where we are right now.
We cannot speculate about what the future brings.
Exactly.
We're voting on what is this right here.
This is, I mean, yes.
Okay.
Well, it's 9:42.
I'd like to make one more statement. Everybody says this gets confusing. The very last ballot measure that came in front of this community that was brought by citizens petition said, close it all down, leave the route, or open it all up. There isn't really any difference between this one and that one, other than the timing. The other ones were 2 weeks apart. The other one was probably a week apart. So with that said, they went on the same exact ballot measure and people were very clear and understood exactly how they were voting. So to say that the citizens aren't educated enough to understand the complexity of 3 initiatives on a ballot is somewhat demeaning and false because it's already happened one time. I'm not saying it was intended that
I
way.
didn't say that. I just said it's confusing.
I'm not, but
I'll take
state legislators.
Confusing for me.
State legislators also have made it very clear through the Secretary of State exactly what wording can be, because that is why on each of the ballot petitions that you saw, it says a yes vote equals and a no vote equals, because the Secretary of State was tired of people coming and complaining that the wording, lawyer speak, was too difficult. So they made it in very clear, very plain English, which is why each one of those petitions had that statement on the bottom of them. A yes vote equals opening up the whole town. A no vote leaves the route in place. That is what we're dealing with right now.
Just to follow up to that, are you?
Go ahead.
It's my understanding that the language that we're looking at in front of us is exactly the language that goes on the ballot. There isn't a no equals, yes equals.
The petition? Okay, no, what you're looking at is an ordinance. An ordinance can either be adopted by us or rejected by us. Because it was a citizen's petition, the wording on the petition that was turned in, which we all received in our inboxes, had very specific wording. And it said a no vote is this, a yes vote is that. So what you're looking at is an ordinance that has been written in order for us to either reject or adopt. And then it goes back to the petition language that was already turned in. So does that clarify it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm good. Any further discussion?
I have one other question. This is fun, guys. It's Friday night. All right. So if we did a referred ballot measure as a motion of a trustee to add a ballot option that closes all OHVs, how do we craft that language?
I defer to legal counsel. I don't need to
And
go there.
I think that's really not what we're here tonight to discuss.
Okay.
I think it's just this one, and hopefully we'll have a new law firm soon, and then they can advise us on how these things need to be on a ballot if they do go to ballot. Yeah, I've made it pretty clear that I don't plan on allowing OHVs on every street this evening. So I'm inclined to let it lapse and go to a vote and wait for a new law firm to give us legal counsel.
Do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to table the ordinance.
I asked that the ordinance be read by the mayor so that everyone in the audience and everyone at home, we're now making motions.
And I asked and he said we'd only make the motion if we were considering adopting it.
I still believe we need to read it.
Is that true?
There's a motion to table this discussion. Now you asked me if that's true. If we're tabling something, it doesn't need to be read. It needs to be read in the record. But if it's being asked to be read, I think it can be read.
Would you like to read it?
I asked for you to read it.
Do you want to read it?
Yes, sir.
Because I don't want to read it. It's 9:47. If we're not gonna adopt it. Because in the, okay. For the sake of,
Or if you, I mean, if you'd like to vote to adopt it, by all means, we can hold the vote, but.
Jim would like me to read it, I will read it.
Thank you, Mr.
Ordinance number 2021-06, an ordinance of the town of Silverton amending sections 8330 and 8340 of the Silverton Town Code in order to designate all streets, alleys, and rights of way within the town of Silverton as off-highway vehicle routes. Whereas the town of Silverton is a Colorado statutory municipality governed by its elected board of trustees. Whereas on April 14, 2021, the town clerk approved the form and the first printer's proof of an initiative petition defined as the April 14th initiative petition, which proposed amendments to sections 8330 and 8380 of the Silverton Town Code. Whereas specifically the April 14th initiative petition proposed the following. Section 8330 is hereby amended as follows. In accordance with section 3314.5-1081, Colorado revised statutes, all streets, alleys, and rights of way within the town of Silverton, except any street or road which is part of the state highway system, are hereby designated as year-round off-highway vehicle routes. The following portion of section 8340 is hereby repealed. A, no person shall operate an off-highway vehicle in the town pursuant to this article, except along the designated permanent OHV routes designated on the OHV route maps. Whereas on April 20th, 2021, the town clerk received a completed April 14th initiative petition and on the same day determined that said initiative petition was sufficient pursuant to CRS section 3111-109. Whereas upon the determination of sufficiency by the town clerk pursuant to CRS section 3111-1041, the Board of Trustees has 20 days to consider adopting the proposed ordinance contained in the April 14th initiative petition without alteration. Whereas the board finds and declares that it is necessary and in the best interest of the health, welfare, and safety of the residents of the town of Silverton to adopt the proposed ordinance contained within the April 14th initiative petition without alteration. Now therefore be it resolved. Now therefore be it hereby ordained by the Board of Trustees of the town of Silverton, Colorado, that April 14 initiative petition amendment, section 8330 is hereby amended as follows. In accordance with section 3314.5-1081 CRS, all streets, alleys, and rights of way within the town of Silverton, except any street or road which is part of the state highway system, are hereby designated as year-round off-highway vehicle routes. The following portion of section 8340 is hereby repealed. A, no person shall operate an off-highway vehicle in the town pursuant to this article, except along the designated permanent OHV routes designated on the OHV route maps. 2, effective date and time. This ordinance, and for clarification, I'm reading this only for the audience's edification, not because this is effective. This ordinance shall take effect and be in force on the 30th day after it has been published, adopted by this board, blank day of April 2021, which would need to be revised.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I'll make a motion to table it.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Clerk, please roll call, please. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There's no citizen participation.
You let the sheriff participate. I'll just make one simple comment. There's three things.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We will not, we have our meeting decorum. I'm sorry.
If you're tabling it.
I'm sorry.
You're rejecting the position, which needs to go to the voters.
I'm sorry. If you would please stop participating, I would appreciate it.
Thank you.
Or we can, what's the other way to let it lapse?
We have a motion and a second.
Vote on it, so.
Is there anything wrong with the current motion and second? That's.
The board has until June 22nd to consider this ordinance.
And it will go to the voters either way.
We have a motion.
Whether we table it or whether we vote against it.
Well, if there's not a vote taken on this petition, and time runs out, it has to go to, you have to set a vote for the people.
Okay, good.
But the motion and the second were just to table the discussion. I'm not aware of anything anywhere with that inappropriate.
So
Because we have until the deadline
it's going to go to a vote. I believe it's going to go to a vote.
and we can receive legal advice.
Yes, you may.
Is there anything we're doing at this time you think we need to stop doing and take legal advice?
Well, that would be table it so you can get legal advice.
Says it,
Prudent to me. So then we address this Monday night?
does it create a legal liability for us?
To table this?
I just,
Just so I understand, if somebody else were to make a motion to adopt it and it failed, the vote, and we took a vote on it and it failed, it would do the same, it would do the same thing, right? It would then go to a vote.
That would be slightly different because we would not then have the opportunity to consider adopting it. If we table it, we still have until, I don't have the date in front of me, but we still have until June 22nd to consider adopting it. So tabling it actually keeps it live for a longer period of time.
But why would you do that to these people?
I didn't do anything.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying you specifically. Oh,
So we can-
why would you do that? Why would you made a super quick decision on the first time, but you can't make a decision on the second one. So why would you continue to do that to the people who have businesses that are relying on this, that have built businesses around that? And I'm not saying you've got to have one, you have the other. I don't really care. The point is, why are you continuing to do that? Why are you stringing it along? Why would you want that?
Did you want to make a motion?
So no, there's already a motion on the table. The motion hasn't been rescinded.
I'm aware, and you're now saying, why would you do that? And I'm saying, would you prefer to make a different motion? Did we miss an opportunity to hear your motion?
I wasn't ready to make a motion. I was listening to Trustee George.
It was my understanding it would go the same way either way. I was trying to continue since the debate seemed over. I'm happy to rescind my motion if you'd like to make a motion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion then.
We had a motion and a second. What do we do?
It was just rescinded.
Can it be rescinded with the second?
He can rescind this.
I can rescind the second.
Okay.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to accept ordinance number 2021-06, an ordinance of the town of Silverton amending sections 8-3-30 and 8-3-40 of the Silverton Code in order to designate all streets and alleys and right-of-ways within the town of Silverton as off-highway vehicle routes.
Keeping in mind that if this doesn't pass, then it's done. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'm really sad this had to go this way, and I'm all for supporting the businesses. I thought this could have been a decision that we made at a better time, like I said in the last meeting that we have, but I'm not okay to opening up the whole town. Just want to put that on the record.
Any further discussion?
Say it's an equality issue, and I think it should go to the people because it's an equality issue. It's reiterating what I had said before.
Did he have his earpiece in? Did anybody see? Did he get a call? That's what I'm assuming too.
I didn't see who.
Any further discussion? So we don't see any value in waiting till Monday. Okay, motion's on the table. It's been seconded. There's no further discussion. Clerk, freeze roll call, please.
Trustee Barella?
Yes.
Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Trustee Wager?
No.
No.
Trustee George?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
No.
Mayor Furman?
No. All right. Because we have an open question about who sets the election date, I don't believe it's appropriate at this time to set the election date and that we should defer to advice from council, and hopefully we can get that on
Monday night.
Monday if Attorney Cosmic is still willing to provide counsel.
Okay, so you're wanting to set a meeting for this coming Monday?
Oh, wait, no. That's, our next meeting's on the 14th.
14th. Is
So
that,
by then we're likely to have new council by then as well.
Mr. Cosmic, I'm sure can provide us with the exact direction.
I'll talk to him on Monday.
Okay.
I'll email him this weekend.
Okay.
As of Monday.
Okay. Moving on to our next agenda item. Consideration.
I just need a little bathroom break.
Okay, we're going to take a 2-minute recess.
Thanks. Please.
Y'all two should be ashamed of yourselves for not standing.
I'm sorry, this is still inappropriate.
I don't care.
Did they get an award for staying till the end of the night?
Golf clap.
Small consolation, I have to say.
All right, is everybody ready to resume?
Thank you.
Nate, the pop-up on the screen still says unmute myself, even though our microphones are unmuted. I just want to make sure we're not muting our virtual audience. Should be unmuted. Correct. Okay. All right. We're moving on to our next agenda item, consideration to approve the contract for the town administrator.
I can go ahead if no one else. Yes, based off the unanimous discussions we've had previously, I'd go ahead and just make a motion that we approve the contract for the town administrator.
We're not gonna have any discussion?
We can, I'm open to it. I thought we had discussion when we revised things, but
I'd really like to discuss this email that came in today. It was brought to my attention by Attorney Kosnick that Charles Alex Lannis applied for the town administrator position. When I reviewed the inbox, I searched for the document. I was unable to find it, review the junk folder, and it seemed, and here it is in a screenshot. So isn't that why we had 3 people receiving? Did you receive it?
I did receive it.
You received Charles Alex Lannis's, and we never saw it. The rest of the board never saw it. Okay, so then I think we should start the RFP process all over again and make it equitable and fair, because there were people who applied within the deadline that did not even get a chance. We didn't even see their information. It was never brought to our attention. And then we should address the second letter that we received from another woman, although a little angry. She wrote a cover letter that none of us ever saw either, that in her email that stated that she wasn't supplying references because she was currently employed and didn't want those people to know that she was looking for another position. So I think this is slightly skewed, and we did not receive. How do we know? I was extremely impressed today by what I read for the candidate that only one person saw and the rest of us didn't.
To be totally clear, I received the email. I checked today after seeing this email, but I received all of the applications, and all that I was doing was the administrative process of looking to see that Paul Kosnick and Anthony Edwards were correctly addressed. And then I filed. I didn't look at names. I didn't review. And I relied entirely on the spreadsheet that we all received with respect to who our eligible candidates were.
And that's why we should go back to the RFP process. This is nothing to do with Gloria, absolutely nothing. It's due to the fact that we didn't actually see everyone that applied. Did that happen with the attorneys as well?
At least 2 candidates.
I think this would be a terrible thing for, sorry.
It said in Mr. Lannis's email, at least 2 candidates. I don't believe that that's correct. After asking Administrator Edwards.
I'm certain that there is at least 2 candidates.
Who I did not receive any other emails that were missed, because I went back and checked afterwards, after I saw this today. So who else did we miss?
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that in public
I didn't
session.
say the name. We can't say the name, but we all received the email from this person, and she provided a cover letter that none of us saw.
But she was considered, and we chose not to pursue her.
But I'm saying, if I would have had the other letter in front of me that she attached, it was the front page of her email, it might have made everybody's decision slightly different. I think the process got skewed, and that's very upsetting. This has nothing to do with Gloria as a person. It has to do with the fact that we didn't see everybody that applied, and we didn't see all the information that they supplied at the time of applying.
If I may, I think there's no question that there was an administrative or clerical mistake that is substantive.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time. We are this board, not this board,
Can I,
but the
I
town of
wasn't
Silverton
done.
has been accused of this before.
I wasn't done. No question. There was an error after seeing this today. We all just got this today. Do you think it's in the best interest of the town of Silverton to start a process that we started back in mid-March, again, right now, knowing that Mr. Edwards is, or Administrator Edwards is done on June 22nd? And to have, we all talked about how impressive our finalists were, and to jeopardize the opportunity to hire this person.
Or to review this guy?
To jeopardize hiring this person who we all were impressed by in order to go back and review a single candidate. But, or as you said, start the RFP process all over again.
There were two individuals.
So you say,
that
I'm only
felt,
aware of
no,
one.
no. The email trail is there. These two individuals that submitted applications never got responded to in an adequate way. At least this one never got responded to at all. In fact, it's still sitting in a junk drawer somewhere. I'd like at least a few days until our next meeting. I'd like to reach out to Securo, who's our software provider, and better understand what happened. You said it went directly in your inbox.
It did.
But it didn't go into anyone else's inbox. It went directly into the junk file or spam folder. I would like to better understand what's going on here. I think this needs to be investigated. That is my opinion. I am opining.
Do you think there's any possibility that the results of that investigation would change the way you feel about hiring Gloria?
Yeah, because I'd like to interview the second guy. This guy here, that's quite an impressive resume. We didn't even see it. How do you know that that wouldn't have been all of our top finalists?
I'm not sure that we're allowed to talk about the substance, but okay, so we're not allowed to talk about substance, but I do have a response to that we could talk about in executive session.
Whichever way you feel it's not going to be equitable and fair to either party. It's an unfortunate happenstance that happened. It won't be equitable and fair to Gloria either.
But was it equitable and fair to the people that applied that we didn't even see it? One person
No,
saw it
I
and
agree.
nobody else did. How is that equitable and fair too?
I did call Attorney Kosnick at 6:38 immediately before the meeting to ask if the town bore any legal liability for having missed this applicant and having them not be included in the process. And he said unequivocally, no.
It's not legal liability. It's your civic duty to look at every possible best candidate that applies. That's what we are entrusted with by the townspeople. These are the big decisions that we actually do make without the citizens. Is that they entrusted us to make the right decision. And so by not even having every single one of the applicants, and like I said, did anybody go check their junk drawer after this incident to check and see if there's any of the attorneys that we didn't even know that applied?
Attorneys were coming to both of us, and I didn't go to the attorneys, but I did go after Trustee Harper asked today and talked to Securo about seeing if there was anybody else missed on the administrator, and there wasn't.
I think it's our civic duty to make decisions in the best interest of the community that are available to us at this time. And I don't believe that postponing this process with an incredible person excited to work here is in the best interest of this community.
And a person we unanimously agreed on, at least.
But would we have unanimously agreed if we would have had the other candidate is my point.
There's hypotheticals to every situation.
Well, it was hypothetical the other night when we were discussing somebody not being able to show up to an interview because of a previous engagement. And so that was thrown on the table and they're like, well, can't be the best if you couldn't show. So same hypothetical that was discussed on, what was it, last night or the night before? Same hypothetical. We can't exactly say the context because it was an executive session, but the same hypothetical was thrown out there.
Trustee Burrell, I'm really disappointed in you right now.
I'm really disappointed in this board.
This board was set up to have a really great win for the community here, to be cohesive and supporting this person that we were all very excited about. And there was an error for sure.
So, Mr.
But
Mayor,
to
you are not
propose-
allowing us
but
the
to-
time to,
No, I think that's a terrible idea. I think this is shenanigans, honestly. That's the best way I can call it. This is shenanigans.
I declare shenanigans. You can't declare
I
shenanigans.
can't declare shenanigans.
I already declared it. And I asked that we do a little investigation here. That's all I'm asking.
Do you know how hard all of our lives have been, like transitioning through all of these different crazy things? And we have the opportunity to provide this community with an amazing new town administrator to shepherd us all into the future. And we're gonna maybe jeopardize that or postpone it. That's shenanigans.
May I just make
The fact that
quick
you saw the email and none of the rest of us did.
May I make a quick point? One, I think we should absolutely look into the Securo situation. I don't think these things are mutually exclusive. I think, right? We could vote on our town administrator tonight. We can investigate and make sure it doesn't happen in the future. And then am I allowed to read any of the email from the person, or is that not allowed?
I think you should.
He fully supports our decision.
Is that okay?
That was sent to the attorney.
Okay, so probably not.
Forwarded on to us.
I mean, I just,
And I know where Trustee George is going, and I fully support what you're about to say.
Beginning of the last paragraph.
I totally understand. I
I
think it's
don't know
great.
if that's appropriate or allowed. I just want to make sure before we do.
I don't.
It was
Nice to have an attorney.
Yeah, it's really stressful for me to not have an attorney and giving us legal advice and through a lot of these issues.
When do we get to go to camp? Go to camp.
Yeah, let's go to camp. I do have a comment on this.
Administrator Edwards was about to say something though.
Oh, sorry.
all I was saying is that was sent to the attorney. We don't know what the intent of the person was. I realize how, I know what you want to read it right now. I'm just gonna say I wouldn't do it.
No, copy.
You got a comment?
Or
You
go
got a
ahead, trustee.
I just think in a true nature of transparency, which is something that our community has asked for since day one, and we've been less than willing to be there.
That is.
Well, I'm not picking on any one person.
I disagree though with that statement.
What I am saying is I believe and I think that we should try to better understand what had transpired, because this isn't an isolated incident. These are two individuals now that during this process were not allowed to be vetted by this board.
Again, disagree. The second person,
course,
their
and
full
that's- and-
packet was provided.
And Mr. Mayor, that's fine.
And we
I just
chose
want
not to pursue
my
that.
opinion to be on the record.
So your opinion about the first person is noted. The second person is incorrect.
It's not incorrect at
We did-
all.
We received their information.
You received it,
All of us
and apparently
received
no
it.
one else received it.
Not the second person. The second person was
The
fully
second
discussed and vetted.
Spreadsheet.
Yes.
Yeah, but we look letter was not. The cover letter from the email was not. The cover letter from the email completely explained why references were not given, and that was a mark in the little box on our spreadsheet.
But it wouldn't have changed
We
the.
can't talk about the substance of why we did or did not include them, but I disagree that the reason that they were excluded was because of that.
Fine.
That was one of the reasons.
I just wanted to reiterate what Trustee George said about things being mutually exclusive. We can totally be transparent. We can admit that mistakes were made and talk to Securo and address these problems. And we can also make the best decision for our community. Like those aren't two different things. We're being transparent right now. We're talking about it. We
And I have asked, for the record, I would like an investigation into what happened.
Sure.
We all agree.
This is not the first time, this is the second
I
time.
think we're all in agreement on that.
Disagree about first and second, but all agree on the investigation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it, as usual. I believe that we should look into this. I do, and I have asked that we give this a few days. But if the board doesn't feel that way, then fine. It was just a request. We make requests all the time for consideration. It was not a motion, it was a request for consideration. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I still declare shenanigans first.
And I would like to add one more thing, given our history with administrators. I think, you know, we have negotiated a contract with somebody that was very highly qualified. I feel like if we postpone or re-begin the RFP, we could very likely lose this person because they'll say, oh, this is how the town is going to operate. And I don't want to have anything to do with it if this is the foot that we're going to start out on. And I think that is a terrible way to start. And I wouldn't be surprised if we lost many more qualified candidates because they said, oh, I went through this entire process, negotiated a contract, and then due to a clerical error, I am now being put in limbo or asked even to re-interview. And I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think that might be irresponsible for us.
Well, I disagree. I think any person worth their salt would go, oh my God. I got this because why? Because nobody else applied? I mean, that's the warm body syndrome. Or are we going to say, hey, we're sorry, we narrowed down our field of candidates because we didn't have all the information for everybody that applied. So we're not in the warm body situation for the first time, and I don't even know how long, thank God. But we had quite a few more apply that we actually didn't see. And I think that's really disturbing.
You keep saying quite a few, but that's disingenuous. There was one.
It happened before. You were on the board. It happened before in another situation, and it was the exact same situation. It was for an administrator, and the person applied on time, and somehow mysteriously it was in all three of the people. It went to their junk box. So it's very hard, I guess, for me to hear this, that it happened a second time. Yeah. That's really hard to hear a second time, that we didn't actually get to look at all the field of candidates. So as Jim said, it was just a suggestion that we put out a new RFP because I feel that this process was skewed and we did not receive all the information, and it was sent in a timely manner.
Trustee Bierman and then Trustee Harper.
Thank you.
And
Go ahead, Trustee Harper.
Fine. Oh, you said Jordan first.
Deferred. Go ahead.
Oh, perfect. I wanted this information out and on the record, but I will make a motion.
I think my motion is still on.
Is it still out there? Then I second your motion.
Did you have a comment as well?
I would also, I just wanted to put.
Still out there? Or are we still in discussion?
I wanted to just make a discussion.
I don't want to do what happened last time and jump the gun.
Did you finish saying the motion?
I believe I did, but I can make it again.
And you just seconded.
I absolutely will second it.
But we can still continue to discuss. We have a motion and a second to approve the town administrator contract. Mayor Pro Tem.
I just wanted to indicate that I do not think that this process was skewed, I do not think that there was an intentional elimination of a candidate. I think it was a clerical error that is very unfortunate and sloppy. And I remember, Trustee Barella, when you said we need this to go to all three emails because this has happened in the past. So I think it does not fall on the mayor or Mr. Edwards personally to have made this mistake. It sounds like you could be in any position and make this mistake. It is not an intentional elimination of a candidate. I want to emphatically express my support for the candidate that we've offered a contract for. I think we all agreed that we had a highly qualified candidate who is a great fit for our community. And I think it serves our community to get her here as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
That's my piece. Thank you for listening.
Any further discussion? Clerk Freeze, roll call, please.
Trustee Barella.
No.
Trustee Harper.
Yes.
Trustee Wager. Trustee Beerma.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes. Gloria, we are so excited to work with you. If you're out there.
We got 30 participants left.
Thank you all tonight for a productive meeting. Thank you to the public for participating. Thank you to the virtual public for participating. Thank you, staff, for spending your Friday night with us. Thank you, Bruce, for